Part 65. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 642. Counting from the time he met Xiao Zai in the abandoned guard mansion, he had been the admiral for a long time. This did not mean that Sugu knew everyone. But someone like Bismarck still knows enough. We met when we were still at Sichuan show before we graduated. It can be said that we have experienced a lot together. For such a long time, we chatted and walked together, and occasionally had arguments, such as about Bizai's education and our views on many things. After all, we are not puppets, everyone has their own ideas. Of course, if you talk about things as they are and tell the truth, this kind of behavior will not really hurt your feelings. My initial impression of Bismarck was that he was serious and rigid, and did not like to care about anything. Although the clues had already been discovered, in fact, it was not until the close relationship happened later that we understood Bismarck's complete softness in private. I met Bizai very early. This girl likes books and sleeps, and doesn't care about anything. If you just think about it, you will do many things naturally. She is slow to do things and always slow to respond when talking to her. This is not because she is stupid, but mainly because she likes to indulge in the spiritual world and is indifferent to the outside world. In fact, Lao Siji will become very powerful once she gets serious. The lonely queen of the north is not a wasted reputation. Saratoga is cold and cold in front of outsiders, and only in front of a few people will its out-of-the-box side be revealed. She is very talkative, brother-in-law, let's have an affair, as long as she does anything behind her sister's back. In fact, when it came time to actually use the weapon, I immediately became intimidated. Sugu still remembers his injured forehead when he hit the wall, and his injured heart. Sugu also understands Lexington's character very well. With the prestige and interest in the little Lolita returning to the town hall, Sugu met the ship girl who had returned to the townhouse after he left during the day. The Love Brain light cruiser cologne is very impressive, and the family received unexpected praise. As expected, the game's illustrations can no longer be believed. Whether it's a girl or a Lolita, all of them are adorable. Everyone here has just returned to the town hall and cannot ignore it anymore. Sugu went to see everyone's rooms at night. As an admiral, he must take good care of them. For example, ask what else is needed, whether the decoration is good, what furniture would you like to add, whether it is a dressing table or a wardrobe. The Italian little Lolita are all arranged in one room. The walls are pink and there are no cartoon pictures posted yet. There are two wooden beds side by side on both sides of the wall, with desks and wardrobes below, and beds above, like a university dormitory. There are currently no books on the bookshelf, and the toys everyone brought back have not been placed on the desk, such as music boxes and ships in bottles. Then there is a big doll on each person's bed, which is kindly sponsored by Xiaozai. Bugolini was lying on the bed, his arms hanging from the side. The big Lolita Antonio was holding a large salted fish doll, sitting on the edge of the bed and dangling his legs. Aviel was sitting at the desk packing things, and Camicia was curled up on the chair with her legs curled up, smiling while holding the photo of Veneto. Seeing Sugu come in, Camicia asked him, "Admiral, where do you think it would be better to hang the photo of my eldest sister?" "Put it on the wall. Say good morning to my eldest sister when you get up every day, and say good night when you go to bed." Camicia likes Veneto very much, which makes Sugudu feel a little jealous, although Veneto is troublesome to this unscrupulous Camicia. "Admiral, do you want to sleep with Camicia tonight? The bed here is so big." "No, I came here mainly to tell you good news." "What good news?" "I have communicated with you, Sister Helena. You will have classes starting tomorrow. It would be best if you can keep up with the progress. If not, every night, you can choose for yourself, Helena, Zeppelin, Tianlong, Long Tien, London, which teacher do you want to give you extra lessons?" Ugolini smiled playfully, it doesn't matter if the Admiral gives us extra lessons. It turned out to be okay. He had already returned to the governor's mansion. There was a small house, fantasy, Lafite, and many little Lolita to choose from. Sugu waved his hand, I can't do it, I still have something to do. Needless to say, he was immediately looked down upon and left the room angrily. Andrea and Ko are together and their room has been sorted. Although her image has changed drastically since she let down her twin ponytails, her personality cannot change. Andrea is so arrogant. Admiral, you are a grown man. It's shameful that you enter a girl's room casually. After spending many days together, especially on the cruise ship, we have become very familiar with each other. Sugu said, what's the big deal if Dad enters my daughter's room? Before he finished speaking, and unable to dodge, the pillow thrown by Andrea hit Sugu's head. Ko hit her. However, the black-haired girl Ko was indifferent to her sister's words. Andrea didn't care about her sister. She put one hand on her hip and straightened her other arm towards Sugu, you can try again and I'll blow you away. Sugu said, I'm back at the garrison. This is my territory. How dare you attack me? Just shout, and Bismarck, Prince of Wales, Hood, and Reputation will come over and cut you into pieces. It's just a fight, the ship is so arrogant. Admit your mistake to me immediately, and I will probably reluctantly forgive you, my Ellie. Andrea went crazy and tried to hit someone with the quilt. Sugu reminded, it's your quilt anyway. Don't blame me if it falls to the ground. If it's dirty, you have to sleep with it at night. Andrea turned her head disdainfully, I threw Kaio's quilt. Ko suddenly showed a wronged expression. Until Sugu left, Andrea looked disdainful, let's go, we're in trouble. Although she is a little Lolita, Venetia lives in a single room, but as the eldest sister, she will not be like a destroyer. In her room, Sugu accidentally saw North Carolina. The two seemed to have a good relationship. Sugu really wanted to remind Veneto that although North Carolina is a little Lolita, she has an explosive figure in the form of a queen. If you can't be friends, give up. Think about it, the grass on the graves of those who dare to openly laugh at the eldest sister is probably more than 1 meter high. The prestige room looks ordinary, without any extraneous things, no hanging paintings, no potted plants, just a few books on the bedside table. She did not live with her sister Sugu. Although Sugu's room was not far from Sugu's room, the room here was in another building. Putting down the book in his hand, Sugu's Reputation solved his doubts, Hood is here. There was nothing else to do in the evening. As the Prince of Wales's maid, she wasn't too fond of Hood, so she sat on the bedside and complained a little. With Reputation not around, she needs to take care of Hood. No more caring for the Prince of Wales than usual, and even though his eldest brother refused to take care of him, Hood was enjoying it with peace of mind. Although she won't take the initiative to boss people around, her life will be a mess if you don't care. Obviously, the glory of the Royal Navy is too weak, then, the counterattack was educated by Reputation. Since he came to this dormitory building, Sugu also stopped by Hood's room to take a look. On the tall catwalk, Ginger and Fishcake huddled. There are a lot of books on the big bookshelf. After all, she is a literary girl. At first, Hood was very dignified and elegant. He mentioned Bismarck in a few words, and she immediately began to vomit her bitterness. You bully me every day, just Bismarck. Admiral, do you know what Prince Eugen says every time he meets me? The girl with glasses has mosquito-repellent eyes, the ammunition depot exploded, Bismarck killed Hood with 3 punches, the cat in the chest, Lucky E, exploded instantly. In short, Hood talked a lot eloquently, and it sounded like he had a lot of resentment towards Prince Eugen. Sugu was silent beside him, remembering that these were the words he usually used as a Black Hood. It seemed that Prince Eugen had memorized them all. He could only say from the side, We must deal with it seriously. Eugenio is destroying the harmony of the town hall. Hood continued to complain, Oscar's bullying of my ginger fish cakes must have been instructed by Bismarck. It's really abominable. He left Hood's room and finally went to the rooms of Glory, Unicorn, Tsundere Chaser and others until it was already night. Then he returned to his dormitory and met Baizai, who was wearing pajamas and slippers. The two of them immediately hid, like underground gang members. Admiral, I have finished the notebook of Sister and Hood. Sugu looked through Baizai's masterpieces, but it was disappointing that there were only 10 pages. However, he also knew that Baizai had worked hard to draw these representations. When he returned to the room, he saw Lexington standing by the window as expected. This was what Sugu had guessed. Lexington is gentle and generous, and all the little girls in the garrison like her. She is a decathlete, and nothing can trouble her in terms of cooking or work. Apart from these, there is actually a little underbelly. She usually likes to call herself a lady and doesn't care how many weddings there are, but she must be the number one in her heart. The Admiral finally knows he's back. I knew it. What do you know? Sugu replied, I know you must be waiting for me in the room. Lexington blinked, you're not shy, you say it like I miss you very much. With his hands behind his back, Lexington continued, except that you just returned to the townhouse and returned to the office. Except that I saw you from a distance in the cafeteria at night. I haven't seen you for a long time. The business is so busy. Sugu explained, we just came back and got to know each other well. No need to explain, I know you like the new and hate the old. Talking nonsense. It doesn't matter if a man is out playing with women, as long as he goes home at night, Lexington said jokingly. As Saratoga's sister, she also has an eccentric side. Sugu locked the door of the room, knowing very well that Lexington would definitely not leave if he came. He said, Gia will be alone in the empty room again. She's used to it anyway. If Gia finds out about your gloating expression, he will definitely beat you. Lexington said, how about I move to the Admiral's room? I'm free to do it. No affirmation, he, 10 bad men with wedding ships. As he spoke, Lexington pointed his finger at Sugu's chest, more teasing than accusing. Sugu said, obviously he was very gentle when we just met. Lexington feigned anger, aren't you gentle now? Still gentle, but becoming more and more erotic. You are so perverted. Lexington laughed and patted Sugu, what can I do to win favor? Well, it really seems to be getting more and more perverted. In this case, don't touch me at night. It doesn't matter, I'm already very tired. Sugu fell on the bed. Lexington said, that's a pity, I obviously prepared a gift. What gift? Lexington pulled up the collar of Sugu's admiral uniform, guess what I'm wearing under my clothes? Nothing to wear. Bingo, you guessed it. Real or fake? False, but if you come back early, you might have sisters. Sugu rolled on the bed and said disdainfully, I don't believe it unless you ask Gia to come over. You came back so late and lost your reputation, and Gia will be gone. Madam, you have become a black-hearted boss. Stop making excuses. I'm full. Sugu lay on the bed and waited for a long time without hearing Lexington speak. Suddenly the lights in the room went dark, so he sat up and reached out to turn on the floor lamp next to the bed. Lexington, so anxious. This is a gift for you. Sugu only saw Lexington walking out of the darkness. She had already changed her clothes. The cyan breast wrap wraps her plump breasts, and underneath is a gauze skirt studded with silver pieces. There are bracelets and anklets with many bells tied to her hands and feet, like a dancer. Because her hair was put down in a bun, her flaxen hair was shawl-length and slightly curled. In the blurred light, the charming lips pursed lightly, and the passionate eyes were filled with enchanting light. She was so charming that her throat made a swallowing motion involuntarily. Consultant Su said, MRS. Lexington touched his hair, but I have only learned dancing for a short time, what should I do? Missouri just returned to the garrison and had no time to learn. In fact, there was no need to dance at all, Sugu had surrendered. Madam, I like you. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 643. Wow! This was the sound of the thick curtains being pulled open, and sunlight suddenly poured into the room from the window. Sugu woke up from his daze and subconsciously covered his eyes with his hands. The sun was too dazzling. After a few seconds, he rolled on the bed and picked up the watch on the bedside table. Cat, it's still so early. I didn't wear a single piece of clothing at night, and I had already changed my clothes. His short silver-gray hair was still a little messy. Bismarck looked out of the window, looking very charming. Utopia has already gotten up early for a run. The white-haired girl who loves sports gets up earlier than anyone else. Of course, Yuxian brought the fishery boat for breakfast, and often the genius Meng Mengliang has already gotten up. However, Sugu couldn't do it. Whenever he needed someone to urge him, he said, "Sleep again." Bismarck said one word at a time, "Get up." "All right." Sugu finally got up slowly, wishing he had known better, and went to the Prince of Wales' room. I traveled thousands of miles to the west and traveled around the Mediterranean. Not to mention the results, I worked hard for a long time. Now that I have returned to the governor's mansion, there is no new information, and I have returned to a peaceful life with delicious food and beauties. Although it is said that good food, good drink, good fun, and good sleep are the criteria, life is not so beautiful. There is no room for laziness at all. When you get up in the morning, you must follow Bismarck's exercises in order to eliminate fat and strengthen your body. The only thing that made people happy was that Ko saw him running. She praised next to her, "Admiral, you are so awesome." At the window of the cafeteria during breakfast time, Yuxian, with her hair tied up and wearing a red cheongsam and an apron, could be said to be pretty and delicious, but she still ordered a large bowl of preserved egg and lean meat porridge. "Xiaozai, please don't fight in the cafeteria in the morning. And you, Fantasy." Boom. I only saw the Z-17 riding on the body of the Fantasy. I originally thought that siblings Z-17 and Z-18 would be ignored by everyone, but Z-18 has not found any outstanding performance. The pink-haired Lolita Z-17 is unexpectedly fierce. Whether she is playing games or being naughty and playful, she is absolutely daring to fight and fight. She has the potential to win a double bonus, and even if she suffers a loss, she will make others suffer. If this kind of character hangs out in the underworld, he will either be hacked to death early and left lying on the streets, or he will rise to the top and become a big boss. In contrast, Italian gangsters are just showing off their cuteness, and a certain eldest sister is the same. After breakfast, Sugu returned to the office again. He has been dealing with work these days. In fact, Lexington has taken care of things clearly, but as an admiral, he still needs to understand the current situation. Scattered reports from the deep-sea ship girls, records of the expedition, and the expenditure and income of the garrison. I wanted to see how Bismarck and Hood would develop, but apart from the first scene I saw, there weren't many interesting discoveries, just a very ordinary confrontation. Hood often did it himself, but Bismarck always left it to Prince Eugen. It would be better to say that Prince Eugen made his own decisions. When Prince Eugen walked past Hood with Oscar in his arms, pretending to try hard to stuff the cat, and then Hood slapped the case and got up, Sugu and Richelieu were sitting next to him. "Richelieu, I never saw how you and Hood were doing. Those are just history. Now we are all sisters of the garrison, and we need to put aside our past grudges. Historically speaking, they were enemies, but Richelieu, as a victim, had no complaints against Hood." You can see clearly Sugu suddenly laughed, so Hood and Bismarck fell in love and killed each other. Like Washington and South Dakota, Richelieu said. They stood up and looked not far away. Washington was holding an axe on South Dakota's head. They didn't know what was happening. Sugu sat back in his seat and said, Richelieu, you have been back to the garrison for so long, you should know something about it. Please call me Fat Nan, little fatty, Fat Nan, Fat Nan. I remember South Dakota got the ring. You seem to favor Washington. If you don't tell me, I've forgotten. Forget it. I don't care. Richelieu, who was holding his cheeks in his palms and wearing jeans and a ruffled shirt, looked resentful. It was interesting to watch Hindenburg challenge everyone in the afternoon, but it wasn't the battle that was interesting. You and I were shooting from far away on the sea. I didn't see much. I mainly liked Hindenburg's confused expression when he returned to the dock after being defeated. Then I finally saw it. Veneto approached Hindenburg. Don't underestimate Andrea. I know. Let's practice. No need. Hindenburg saw Veneto's gloomy face. Of course she already knew the identity of the eldest sister. Veneto deadpanned, I'm just a destroyer. Nevada opened the market on the shore, and Missouri stood next to Sugu and smiled, Veneto shorty. My feet can't even reach the surface of the sea. It was also the first time for York City to see the Veneto ship fully open, and she smiled happily. Sugu suddenly felt that even if Veneto won this exercise, both sides would lose. Suk Bader likes to sit on the rocks outside the garrison and fish, and Odin is often by her side. The two little girls are inseparable good friends. Master Suk, you also said you would help me fish out U-96 and U-156, but there is no movement now. They don't eat fish. It is said that U-96 is a foodie, so you have to try it with oranges. Otherwise, apples are fine, and pears are okay too. Suk Bader did not catch U-96, but she caught U-47 because U-47 reached out to pull her bait. You're here again, U-47, you deserve a beating. Suk Bader was not someone who was easily bullied, or would break out if bullied too much. She picked up a fishing rod and went to hit U-47, but she couldn't hit the young submarine at all. Gilialug, U-47 has reached the bottom of the water. Sugu met U-47 on the beach when he was returning to the governor's mansion. The young girl asked for a hug, but she was wet, so Sugu decisively refused. After many days, Sugu did not take Kaohsiung to show off at the garrison next door. The family was already in such a difficult situation and it was difficult to kill them all. Although they work hard to practice their cooking skills every day, Kaohsiung still has no skills at night. It can be seen from the fact that Atago carries Chumi back to his room every day. It is very likely that their store will no longer be able to serve late-night snacks. July was approaching, and Sugu accompanied them on a shopping spree in Chuangziu, as they had promised Atago. You don't need to pay too much attention to the decoration materials used to open the store. There were a lot of materials left over from the original decoration of the cafe. During this time, many people returned to the governor's mansion, and there was already a lot of materials in the warehouse. In addition, it's just right. Many people in the governor's mansion have nothing to do, so there is no need to hire an outside construction team for the decoration. Pots and pans are a must. I have seen tables, chairs, and benches in major furniture stores in Sichuanjiu, but I am still hesitant. In short, Sugu likes simple solid wood seats. From morning to afternoon there was still no decision, everyone planned to stay in Chuangziu for one day. In the evening, the sun had not yet set, and Sugu took them for a nice walk around the college. Our old classroom. That's the big classroom over there. It's right here. York City and I were in class, and we almost got into a fight. Zeppelin used to tease instructor S. Not deliberately, but I finally met my classmates. Sugu introduced, Kaohsiung, Atago, Maya, and Chokai. Since the departure of Zeppelin and Akagi, the college's vitality has been severely weakened. After all this time, someone has been found to serve as an instructor. Its strength is unknown, but it is an aircraft carrier that Sugu has never seen before, the Glory-class aircraft carrier, the Formidable. I had heard Akage mention it earlier, and this time I took a look at it from a distance. She has successfully integrated into the governor's house. Chi Berlin has already given the key to her dormitory in the college to Sugu, but she is still used to living in the dormitory in Shikung. It was no accident at all. In the evening, I met the verbose giant statue who came to visit me again. Sugu introduced everyone to the giant statue. The blonde girl nodded without hesitation and said, "It turns out we are a family." Everyone was quite sensitive to this title. Atago glared at it, but Colossus was obviously very big-hearted and didn't care at all. Colossus talks a lot and doesn't need to start. She talks about interesting things that happened in the academy recently. I've heard for a long time that Principal Warp Eater wants to retire. I think she can survive for another 500 years. It's holiday soon. I'm so bored. I want to travel somewhere, but I don't know where is better. Mr. Su, you said you should go see the snow-capped mountains or the cherry blossoms. Sure enough, it's better to go over the Hongduan mountains. I'm the strongest mountain climber. People. By the way, I asked Hundred-Eyed Giant what she wanted to do, and she said she wanted to learn cooking skills during her vacation. Ha ha ha, she is only a British ship, so she has really big ideas. There are so many things worth complaining about, Sugu really doesn't know where to start. If you have nothing to do during the holiday, you might as well go to your townhouse to play, but there is nothing interesting about your townhouse. I can only bully Amethyst and bury her to beat watermelons. You must not know, right? A student built Maryland and then tap danced on the spot. I saw Maryland shaking his head and his face turned blue. It's just Maryland, so exciting. Sugu was not interested in Maryland. Although he was Big 7, it was just that there was no general in Sichuan, Liao Hua, who was the pioneer. Colorado is okay, but her figure is terrible. Maryland, as a battleship, is completely flat-chested and a bit pitiful in front of her sister. Colossus nodded thoughtfully. She often went to Shugagard's house. Missouri had known her for a long time, and recently she also met Hindenburg. Now her horizons have become higher. It seems so. It's not a powerful battleship at all. But those students seem very happy. Do you know Aruba? Sue, you always say that other people have bad luck, what about you? In the game, there is no way to build a high starship without reaching a certain level. Sugu still remembers that when he looked through the construction diary, he fell in love with Colorado at a glance, and the ending was satisfying. Not to mention the bravery of a hero, he is proud. When I entered the academy, I immediately left York City as soon as I started building. Compared with its sister company, York City is not well known, but it is still a powerful aircraft carrier. Compared to many of my classmates back then, most of them were accompanied by destroyers and a small number of light cruisers and heavy cruisers. It was only a few people who built the capital ship. It reminds me of the whipping from York City. Even though it was almost 2 years ago, I remember it clearly and it seems I will never forget it. Then, what else did you build? Colossus knew how long Sugu's garrison had been established. When you think about it, it doesn't seem like it's being built anymore. What is an admiral if he doesn't build or salvage ships? You can just be a salted fish. Although they were not built, we still recovered a lot of ships when we salvaged them. Such as the destroyers Irashi, Zeppelin, Cushing, Missouri, and Hindenburg. While talking, Sugu remembered that he hadn't built one for a long time, and he wanted to build one. Anyway, the resources of the garrison are quite abundant. After all, they have been saved for so long. Due to the rewards for suppressing the deep-sea flagship twice, to exaggerate, it can be said that the warehouse is full of resources. Of course, it is a small warehouse, and there is no way to compare it with the large resource warehouse of the college. The Colossus said nonchalantly, "You go ahead and build it, and I will share my luck with you. Let me tell you, the last time I bought something on the street, I won the lottery." "You won the lottery? Your luck is gone. You're done squandering it. By the way, how many prizes did you win?" "Coupon, 50% off on shampoo, but you can only buy the shampoo they specify." Sugu was sad. "You must have been deceived. They raised the price first and then discounted it?" Colossus waved his hand. "It doesn't matter, the shampoo seems to be quite easy to use, and there are no splits in my hair. You're a ship girl, so your hair won't be parted. I've even won discounts on bracelets and jade pendants." Sugu explained, and Colossus finally blushed. "Okay, stop talking, I understand, you really don't want to build it again. Go on, I want to ask Lexington." Of course Sugu would not agree. He could not act impulsively. He had to go back and think it over carefully. Colossus laughed. "You are really a strict henpecker." "Well, it seems that many admirals are henpecked." Sugu said, "I am not a strict wife, I just respect Lexington, my wife." Colossus had a wild mind, but she didn't worry about construction. She suddenly moved on to other topics. "Last week, I met someone who wanted to fish for me again. But her townhouse didn't even have a hero machine, so I didn't even consider it and didn't give her the chance." Sugu said, "Wait, just wait for the captain. The academy still doesn't let me be an instructor. It just asks me to learn from everyone and become better when I can. Well, I went on an attack and sank a deep-sea destroyer with Instructor Nelson." Sugu thought to himself that without having experienced combat, there was no way to improve his training level easily. Colossus lay on the short table and said in frustration, "Suddenly I found that my hero machine is not very easy to use. Yours is just a golden plane, not a hero plane. Hey, Mr. Su, I saw the destroyer Xiaoyu last time. Let me tell you, she is really cute. I remember that you like short hair, and I also like short hair, so I cut my hair short." After talking for a long time, it was already late at night, and the giant statue reluctantly left. Here Kaohsiung asked, "Admiral, are you familiar with her?" "Well enough." Chumi joked, "Pick her up." "I don't have any ideas. She's so eloquent. Didn't you notice?" Maya sneered, "She hasn't stopped talking since she started. She still has time to eat melon seeds and drink drinks. But I don't believe you when you say you have no ideas." Kaohsiung asked, "How do you know each other?" "It's nothing. Nothing extraordinary happened. It's just that we had a lot of contact." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 644. The exhaust fan is rotating slowly, and beams of light are shooting down from the skylight on the roof. This is in the warehouse of the town hall. I spent 2 days shopping in Chuangzhou with my Kaohsiung-level family, and rushed back to the Larry mansion in the afternoon. It was already the morning of the second day. Pulling a bench and sitting by the window, Sugu was crossing his legs and looking at the resource revenue and expenditure records in the warehouse, which were more detailed than those seen in the office. After flipping through several pages, a certain name appeared quite frequently. He said, "If you don't know, there are so many records of aluminum withdrawals in York City." Flicking with her short blonde hair, she ran her fingers through her bangs. Leipzig wore a sleeveless white shirt. Since she was not organizing resources, she did not put on an extra-large apron and gloves, looking youthful and beautiful. It would be better if the expression on her face wasn't so ugly, but she couldn't blame her. I was sitting on a stone bench in the shade of a tree with my camera in my hand, eating peanuts and drinking beer, and exchanging photography experiences with Jade and Jinjin. It was very comfortable, and then I was called to the warehouse. Withdrawing her hand from playing with her hair, she leaned against the wall beside Sugu, put her hands behind her, looked up at the ceiling where the wall covering had long since fallen off, and explained unhappily, "York City has been practicing difficult flying maneuvers recently. The level is terrible, and from time to time a carrier-based aircraft is lost, and then the carrier-based aircraft has to be replenished. I have to practice if my level is not good enough," Sugu muttered. Unlike games, it is not a simple matter to cultivate an aircraft carrier here. Occasionally, deep-sea ship girls appear and can be eliminated easily. Although the consumption is not much, in fact the resources of the garrison are mainly consumed in drills and exercises. Leipzig, a hamster cancer patient, values resources more than anything else. She vomited bitterly, "Admiral, please turn forward. If you look at the previous records, you must not know that York City actually used the bomber B-25 for practice, lost several of them in just a few days. She shamelessly came over and asked me for resources. I wanted to kill her, but she reported it to Lexington anyway." After briefly reading the income and expenditure records, Sugu returned it to Leipzig. The blonde girl held it in her arms and asked, "Have you finished reading? What else do you want to read? How many resources do we have in total now?" Leipzig is an excellent warehouse manager, not because she is conscientious in her work, but because Grandette's character makes her regard any resource as extremely important and does not tolerate any mistakes. She quickly picked up a number. After hearing this, Sugu silently calculated it in his mind, nodded and said, "Not bad." Sugu stood up from the bench and slowly walked around the not-so-large warehouse. Leipzig followed behind, like a small employee waiting for the big leader to inspect, waiting to answer questions at any time. It's just a pity that there is no respect on her face, on the contrary, it is full of vigilance. "You are following so closely to prevent thieves." Sugu was unhappy when he took a step and Leipzig followed suit. Leipzig always has a quick wit. "You are so nervous, is there something wrong in your heart?" "What can I do?" Sugu knocked on the rusty iron sheet placed in the corner. The rust fell, and a few rivets fell to the ground. He opened his hands, "Don't talk about resources, the whole guard the house is mine." "Leipzig, you are mine too." Before meeting Bazai, I had traveled all over the country, worked in a factory, and worked as a hawker. Thanks to this, Leipzig is eloquent. She pinched her chin and said, "Rather than saying that I am yours, it is better to say that you are ours. I think about how many people there are in the town government. Well, I am at least 1% at the moment. 1. When there are more and more people in the future, it will probably be diluted a little more, to at least 20%. The ship girl will not leave the admiral, and the admiral can't even think about where to go." Without arguing with Leipzig, Sugu looked around at the many resources. He slowly said, "I was thinking." "What are you thinking about?" Leipzig felt uneasy. Sugu finally spoke, "I was wondering how many times our warehouse has enough resources to build it." Sugu was still walking, but when he turned around, he found that Leipzig had stopped and his face was expressionless. He waved his hand in front of Leipzig's eyes, and the girl slapped his hand away like a cheating boyfriend. "Admiral, your wolfish ambition has been exposed." "What kind of ambition is that? It's too exaggerated." "I'm just asking casually." The blonde girl sneered, with an expression like, "Do you think I'll believe it?" So looked at her nose and nose. Leipzig was a guest, so she asked, "Admiral, how many people are there in our garrison?" Of course, there are records of how many people there are in the Tutelary mansion. By adding the previous numbers and the number of ship girls who just returned to the Tutelary mansion, we can figure it out immediately. To be honest, Sugu's mental arithmetic ability is pretty good. Leipzig reached out to hold Sugu's hand and persuaded, "Admiral, there are so many people, and your garrison has surpassed 99% of the garrison." Sugu tried hard to pull his hand out, feeling uneasy being held by Leipzig, but the girl held her tightly, so he could only say, "I know. There are so many ship girls in the garrison. They can already rule the world. What else are they building?" I didn't expect such a big reaction from Leipzig, but I'm definitely not feeling sorry for myself, I'm just reluctant to give up resources. Sugu denied it, I just asked casually, don't react so fiercely. Sci, Fantasy, Lawfight, 6 Z Driver, and the Italian Little Lolita are all back. There are so many Little Lolita, aren't they enough for you to play with? In the future, there will be big mackerel and archerfish, and the little girl. Sugu was disgusted, I'm not a lolicon, and please don't be so ambiguous in your words, okay? Okay, we have Zeppelin to help us in the academy, Blucher and Hipper know a lot of people in the gendarmerie system, you have the Enterprise guarding you, and most importantly, everyone in the garrison is so strong. You are just playing with two little Lolita, no one cares about you. Seeing that Sugu's face turned livid, Leipzig calmed down a little. She said, I know that little Lolita have a bad influence, but there are also many girls in the garrison. Santiago is cute, remember you always wanted to pull her. The tail is still her sensitive point. Exeter is gentle and a nun. Kent is weak and can be bullied as much as you want. Feel free to use your evil ideas on her. By the way, there is also Juno who is Tsundere. Sugu curled his lips and said, and Leipzig has flat chests. Leipzig quickly covered her chest and said, small breasts are a scarce resource. Hey, mine is not small anymore, it is completely okay. If it grows, it will be bigger. I am normal, like Helena it's a monster. If ship girls weren't a fantasy being, no one would have a figure like Helena's. It will definitely sag in the future. No, it's already sagged. I've written it down. Leipzig, you probably can't beat Helena. Blinking his eyes, Leipzig said generously, well, if you can dispel the Admiral's idea, Leipzig can also do it, but you still have to pay. You have no moral integrity at all. Can integrity be eaten as food? Sugu sighed, thinking that he could be Beizai's assistant in drawing books. He didn't expect Leipzig to be very noble, but there was no need to go to this point. The dark green raincloth covering the steel has not yet been lifted, and you can enjoy the steel that contains history. Leipzig had reached out to hold down the raincloth, and then sat on the steel, as if afraid that someone would directly try to wake up the steel. Admiral, there are so many people on your wedding ship, 10 in total. There are also Ziwahi, Richelieu, and Washington. Anyway, there are many people waiting for you to give out rings. You are just an ordinary person, and you are going to be squeezed dry. Leipzig was heartbroken, you have a lot of little Lolita, you have a lot of girls, and there are so many wedding ships. Really, the town government doesn't need new people. Sugu couldn't stand it anymore and said, I'm going to ask Bismarck to educate you, well, I'd better ask the Prince of Wales. I've left my words here. It's useless for you to call anyone. Leipzig's majesty was fully displayed. Sugu said, you are just a small warehouse manager. Not unless you remove me. Sugu persuaded, it's not certain yet, I still need to seek Lexington's opinion. After living together for so long, Leipzig knew it very well. She said, Lexington, she will agree to whatever you want. It was time to use his trump card, Sugu said, remember, I will give you an aquarium. All the fish are dead. There was no regret on Leipzig's face. The aquarium was called the Undersea Treasure. The fish were not important at all. The coins hidden in the white sand and the small treasure box were the focus. I think the aquarium still needs a little something. Leipzig keeps an eye on Sugu. Hayabusa, whose long red hair was not tied up and wearing a white skirt, saw that the warehouse door was not closed. Out of curiosity, she brought her sister Fei Ying over. When I walked into the warehouse, I saw our admiral sitting on the steel ruins holding a can of Coke, and Leipzig was sitting next to him. The two were talking, and their relationship seemed to be so good that they were just arm in arm. Flying Eagle, Falcon, caught it? The beautiful short hair jumped up, and the Flying Eagle caught the flying Coke gracefully. She is a tomboy and good at sports. Of course, the tomboy only needs to put on a kimono and he will immediately become a stunningly charming goddess. In fact, you don't need a kimono, you just need to abandon your neutral dress and change into a skirt. The Coke made a parabola in the air. Falcon caught it a little hastily and his movements were not very elegant. It should be said that it was lucky that it did not fall to the ground. Pulling the tab open, Falcon asked curiously, "Why did the Admiral come to the warehouse?" "I just remembered to come over and take a look." Sugu looked at Hayabusa's delicate features, but still couldn't forget the kimono. Flying Eagle, Hayakening is working in the warehouse recently, how is it? "It's pretty good," Hayabusa said, thinking that Leipzig didn't like the work of paperwork and records. He liked to organize resources and be satisfied with everything he did. The two of them are currently working together happily. After squeezing the Coke can, Sugu asked again, "What has Fei Ying been doing lately?" Fei Ying said carelessly, "I don't have anything to do." "Does rubbing Long Xiang's head every day count?" "I see you bullying Long Xiang every day." "I was playing chess with Ruhi yesterday, and Long Xiang was pointing at me. I was annoyed. Ruhi, the amazing dog, now no one can play games that test luck with her." Consultant Su, did you win, or did Ruhi win? Fei Ying grimaced, "Ruhi wins. Let's play chess when we have time." "Now you can." Flying Eagle is a girl with excessive energy. Although she prefers sports, she can also play chess with the Admiral. Sugu looked around and said, "Four of us, why don't we cheat?" Falcon raised his palms and said, "I won't come." Fei Ying hugged his sister and said with high spirits, "The Admiral gave the order, and my sister also gave the order." Leipzig found the poker, raised his eyebrows, and asked, "What punishment, stripping off your clothes?" She looked at Sugu again and said, "You are so beautiful, let's drink beer." He had no idea and knew it was unrealistic. Sugu said unhappily, "Leipzig, I didn't say anything. Don't make things worse for yourself." The chairs were moved in, and the four of them sat in the warehouse, playing cards and talking. "Falcon, if you can afford it, you must." "Leipzig, 8 cards count 16. Drink, it's just a can of beer." 1-3, Fei Ying let you run away, I'll be nice to you." Seeing that Fei Ying was a little stupid, Sugu couldn't help but speak. "Admiral, you are too biased." Leipzig threw the cards on the table and said, 70, 80, 90. "It's summer again, and it's the most annoying thing." "Me too," Fei Ying said with a troubled face. "Me too," said Falcon with a troubled face. "The sisters have the same weakness." Leipzig said, "I just think it's too hot in the summer." "Leipzig, I will strangle you to death." Falcon's face turned red. Hearing that everyone was so unscrupulous, Sugu said, Hey, I'm here. The Admiral is the Admiral, there is no gender. The affection from the Admiral is the most important, followed by the male and female." "Admiral, tell us a joke," Fei Ying said boredly. The beautiful girl made a request, but Sugu could only refuse. The animal school started, and the elephant was late. The teacher said angrily, "Why didn't you come until now? Just don't come." The elephant said that the truth may be late, but it will always be, will not be absent. "Leipzig, remind you not to cheat." "How could I cheat?" Detective Sugu said, "Falcon Eagle initially played 3 sevens, but you didn't play a card, so you passed. But you just played a pair of 10s, and now you play another 10. What do you mean? Haha, I don't know anything. 52 Leipzig notes. Continue. After a long while, Sugu reminded, Flying Eagle, the key to running the cards is to run first, whether you win or not is the second priority. Really, the admiral is too partial to Fei Ying. Originally, he only planned to take a look at the warehouse, so he waited until noon when Sugu returned to the office. Seeing Lexington, he pitched his idea to build it. It's been almost 2 years now. The admiral should have built it several times. Lexington fully supported it. Suddenly thinking of something, Sugu asked curiously, my wife, if we hold hands to awaken the history and memory in steel. If a ship girl appears, will it be considered our child? Lexington is funny and can't do anything about the admiral who likes whimsical ideas. Looking for the lost ship girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 645. The faint scent of sandalwood filled the entire antique room, and the hollow carved windows let in specks of sunlight. The red brocade quilt is spread on the walnut-colored wooden bed, and there is a solid wood hollow screen. Yuxian's room is like an ancient woman's boudoir. Well, there are also many modern handicrafts. The dressing table is not a bronze mirror, and there is a floor-standing table at the end of the bed. Fan. The guhan is in the corner and the pipa is hung on the wall. Look at a person's worth and his opponents. As the nemesis of the decathlon's Lexington, Yat-sen is multi-talented. Not only is she the supreme cook, but she is also involved in music, calligraphy, and poetry, which is really impressive. It's just that Sugu is a science student, and his effectiveness in killing enemies is greatly reduced. Sacrifice, consecration, traveling, logging, it seems that there is no shipbuilding in the lunar calendar. I wonder if it is appropriate to build a ship. It probably doesn't count. Well, forget it if there is no auspicious day. It had been decided to build it, but Sugu did not start immediately. No different than the game, you can 100% build a ship girl. Construction will fail here, and the resources that have been saved so hard will be wasted. Once you fail, it is no joke to chop off your hands or jump off the building. Yuxian asked curiously, Admiral, do you still believe this? You have to believe in metaphysics. Yuxian, do you know how exaggerated those admirals went to build it? No one knows what kind of ship girl will be built. For the sake of psychological comfort, there are many construction mysteries. At present, everyone generally respects the production of women's clothing, but I don't know how many reasons for this are mischievous. Everyone believes it, and even if they don't believe it, they will gradually be affected by it. Besides, it doesn't cost money anyway, so just trust it. All kinds of taboos are believed by Yuxian, but they are not superstitious. For example, many people will pray to gods and worship Buddha, but when their children are sick, they will be sent to the hospital immediately instead of dancing to gods or drinking talisman water. She continued to flip through the calendar, wanting to continue searching, and asked, has the admiral already made up his mind to build it? Sugu was eating cakes, which he couldn't live without when he came to Yuxian's room. He replied, yes, after all, there has been no construction for a long time. Who do you want to build? Do you have any plans? Sugu asked back, who does Yuxian hope for? I hope it's Yang Rui and Zayahi, the fishery management ship that the admiral said. Unlike in the game where you can only salvage, in theory any ship girl here can appear through construction. It's just that Sugula has no obsession with fishery boats, and he had no interest in salvaging them in the first place. He asked funnily, what do you think of the Liaoning, a large flat-top fish drying boat? Yang Rui and Zayahi were really not familiar with it, but they paid a lot of attention to the Liaoning at first. Sugu once again thought of the video that had been circulated on the internet, recording the ups and downs that the country's navy had experienced along the way. The background music is Dream of Home and Country. I still remember the first time I watched the video, I almost shed tears. Of course, no modern ship has yet appeared for this purpose. The specific reason is that many people speculate that there were no sea battles after World War II. There was no experience of life, death, victory, and no strong feelings among the crew, so there were no ship girls. But think about it. Once the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier equipped with Fat Power and Rifle appears, and then there are some 052D and DDG-1000 Zumwalt-class destroyers, everyone will not play with it. As a World War II ship, she didn't know much about the subsequent history. Yuxian didn't know anything about the Liaoning. She asked, "Who is that?" Sugu smiled, "Our aircraft carrier Liaoning, CV-16. I want it." Even though he didn't understand that much, seeing Sugu's expression, Yuxian showed a longing expression, "I hope so." Leaving Yuxian's room, Sugu thought about the construction. How to awaken the history and memory in steel and build a ship girl. There are no precise rules yet, but it probably requires a lot of resources. There is no actual fixed number of resources required. Some people say that you can build a ship girl with less resources, but some people say that the more resources you have, the easier it is to build, and the greater the chance of getting a capital ship. No one is willing to use only a few resources. Then when people touch steel with intention, they can feel the history and memory contained in it. If you only see the fragmented history, such as first seeing the battleship Bismarck, then seeing the destroyer Yukikaze, and then seeing the heavy cruiser USS Wichita, it can basically be said to have failed. There is a beginning and an end, and only by seeing a relatively complete history can we build a ship girl. Someone once roughly recorded the construction process. Apart from the short scenes, she mainly saw 3 scenes. The first thing I saw was the huge warship parked at the pier. There were crowds of people on the pier, who took off their hats and lay on the guardrail of the pier waving. Next, the surrounding scenes became oppressive, with the battleship in the ocean. The sky was gloomy, and several warships were surrounding them, pouring ammunition of various calibers unbridled. Fireworks filled the decks, and the crews were running around. There were shouts everywhere, the sound of leather boots on the metal deck, the sound of palms slapping on the metal ship door, and the roar of ammunition falling on the deck. I also found people running around on the deck, and the crew in the engine room shook the hatch, but it had long been stuck. The elevators had also stopped operating, and the hoarse and feeble shouts of many sailors in the lower cabins were heard. Planes circled in the sky, huge water columns rose into the sky under the bombardment of ammunition, and the battleships shook. Sea water was coming from all directions, and sinking was inevitable. In the last scene, there was water everywhere, and the huge warship that had long been corroded by the sea water was quietly sitting on the bottom of the sea. Rusty iron sheets and iron chains were tangled together, and the fort lay across the water. Stepping on the white sand, seaweed sways beside you. It is through feeling the history in steel that the ship girl is built. Under such circumstances, the ship girl awakened by the admiral also feels an inexplicable closeness to the admiral that no one can replace. In fact, some people are considering trying to let people awaken themselves while feeling the history of steel, so that they can know what kind of ship girls they can build. Even if the steel is the same, the history coming from the steel will not be the same every time, and there is no loophole to exploit. Even if someone interrupts the process, the history and memory contained in the steel may be lost. No one will try to interrupt unless they have to. In short, there are not many ship girls in the world, and they have not spread so far. Most of the reasons are that it is too difficult to build. The blonde hair on her head has been let down. The Prince of Wales has long hair shawling her shoulders. Sugu stayed in her room at night. The construction was a big event, and I had no intention of hiding it. The news about the townhouse soon spread, and the Prince of Wales asked, "I heard that you are going to build it." Sugu nodded, "Yes." "When are you going to build it?" I asked Yuxian. "There is no auspicious day, Probably these 2 days. What do you want to say? No. To a certain extent, it's true that you can tell other people's lies and ghosts' lies. You can easily tell anyone that you are the most beautiful in the world and I like you the most. Consultant Sue, the Prince of Wales wants to have sisters. The eldest brother, the King George V, and the younger sister, the Duke of York. I worked hard to build them. In fact, I said this not entirely for the sake of the Prince of Wales. His elder sister is King George V, and his younger sister is the Duke of York. They are both outstanding, handsome, and beautiful ship girls. Sugu has wanted for a long time. It doesn't matter, the Prince of Wales replied as she slowly sipped the red wine. I have never met sisters, and I am not interested in them either. After all, feelings are the foundation of everything. Sugu made a mistake here. He said to himself, I think it's good. Isn't the three sisters beautiful? Just after he finished speaking, Sugu noticed that the Prince of Wales was staring at him and felt that the air had become cold. He quickly changed the subject. What do you think of Rome? Thinking about the scene when Veneto saw his sister, he first looked at his sister's breasts, and then lowered his head to look at himself. His face would probably darken when he compared it. Sugu continued, how about Yamato? Since there is Yamato Abyssal, there must be Yamato. There was even a Yamato cannon in the game, but it was never installed on the Yamato. Being so famous probably put a lot of pressure on the artist, for fear of disappointing people. In addition, many people said that since when did the game come out and take jujube pills that Yamato used to extend his life. Yamato and Musashi have never appeared, but at least the younger sister Shinano has appeared. I don't know what kind of image Yamato will be. Yamato Nades Hiko is the best, but the image seems to overlap with Fuzu. A handsome eldest sister is also good, and so is a queen. Think of Yamato Fukumai, as long as he's not a funny character, that's enough. After hearing Sugu's talk, the Prince of Wales didn't say anything auspicious. She snorted coldly, you are so lucky that you still want a big ship. Suguman didn't care, he said, it doesn't matter if it's not a big ship. To be honest, I want submarines. Surgeon Fish, U-96, U-156, even if there are no submarines, destroyers will be fine. Forget it about Broomstick William, I still want to live. Potato Obanon is very good and cute. Converse, Dyson, and Claxton are also very cute, and with an extra sister, Fletcher will become stronger again. If it doesn't work, the blank destroyer Minekaze will also work. Sugu continued, it doesn't matter whether it's a big ship or a small ship, as long as the ship girls that are already there in the garrison don't show up. The Prince of Wales said, everyone is different. I know they are different, but two identical ship girls can easily have conflicts and think that the other is a fake. If they are actually built, I will not treat them any differently. The Prince of Wales shrugged, anyway, no matter who you are, as long as you build it, it means you are lucky. Don't just watch a few movies. Someone has calculated the average number of construction times to build a ship girl, and then my decision. Before he finished, Sugu laughed himself, there is Zhongwanwan in Zankan, and there are 9 paupers next door. On average, get up and do the math, everyone is Zhongwanwan. The gap between European admirals and African admirals is so great that the average number cannot be counted. Thoughtfully, Sugu said, speaking of which, I went to see you before and we attended a party together. I remember there was a big boss in cross-dressing. What was his name? Cannot remember. I wonder if women's clothing is useful. I can give you a dress. Sugu stared at the Prince of Wales, and the more he learned, the worse he became. He suddenly laughed, brother, let me tell you, Leipzig said that breasts that are too big will sag. The Prince of Wales had a cold face and uttered a sentence for a long time, I see what you said. Sugu raised his hand, conscience of heaven and earth, I like the figure of the Prince of Wales. It is absolutely impossible for me to say such a thing. Then I'll write it down. Until late at night, she finally decided to go to bed. The Prince of Wales was reluctant to say auspicious words, so Sugu decided to punish her. On this sunny morning, Sugu stood in front of the abandoned stele. Finally deciding to start building, he took a deep breath, feeling uneasy as he felt like rushing to the execution ground, or maybe the examination room or the battlefield would be better. It's a big gamble, and if it doesn't work out, it's going to be a success. As expected, I prefer fishing for boats to building them. Hood, Royal Oak, Juno, Firefly, Antonio, Bugolini, especially Snow Wind. The head maid stood beside Sugu and said, I have already told them. By the way, there's also Xianghe. Wearing a cyan dress and stroking the bangs of her short hair with her fingers, Ruhi said, my sister just complained about me this morning. Metaphysics still needs to be respected to a certain extent. At such an important moment, the unfortunate ship must stay away. Remember the reputation. I'm afraid of the boss. No matter if it succeeds or not, remember to stop me. Okay, he was very determined in his reputation. Prince Eugen, Bismarck's little nanny and secretary, said, it's been built so many times, and you're exhausted? Most of them were useless. Sugayang raised his hand and said, okay, it's almost done, ready to start. Master Suk. Suk Bader stepped forward and Sugu picked up the young girl and gave her a good kiss. Lafite. Sugu hugged Lafite again. The girl was quite heavy. Sullivan. And Odin. Now that they have been together for such a long time and there is no shame, Sugu hugged Prince Eugen. Ruhi felt the embrace, and she said, I'm giving you an advantage. Yuxian smiled and pulled Sugu's collar, I wish all your wishes come true, Admiral. Santiago's body was so soft that he took the opportunity to touch his tail. Hug the head made a little harder. Brother-in-law, and me. It's not that famous, but Saratoga's luck is actually pretty good, even though it cheated the Queen of Baths, and even though it was a crossroads. Brother-in-law, it's not over yet. There's another one to give you my blessing. Saratoga's hug lasted longer than anyone else's, until Lexington coughed, and then he reluctantly let go. Why can Washington? I'm lucky. Washington folded his arms slightly and said, South Dakota, don't talk. Missouri hummed, I think you just want to hug everyone, and you keep asking for luck. Belfast thought, I am a Karen. Finally, Sugu turned around and put his palms on the steel. The picture in front of me was like a spider web appearing on the glass, and then it all shattered, and then countless pictures appeared like a slideshow. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 646. Water columns, thick smoke, roaring artillery fire, and swooping carrier-based aircraft, chaotic scenes flashed before our eyes. Suddenly opening his eyes, Sugu leaned on the rusty iron pillar and bent down to catch his breath. History repeats itself in front of our eyes. It would be fine if we were a bystander. Occasionally, we would completely step into the perspective of someone else, an officer, a sailor, a damage control officer. At this time, we couldn't even look around. The last scene in my memory came from an unknown pilot. First, there was a blue sky in front of him. Suddenly, the carrier-based aircraft began to roll, and the screen rotated. Finally, the entire carrier-based aircraft crashed into the flight deck of an unknown aircraft carrier, and everything went dark. Ziwihi left the warehouse and ran to comfort his sister, it's just your bad luck, it's not that the Admiral doesn't like you. Little Loli didn't expect to stay by the warehouse anymore, she had already disappeared. Lexington was busy, and Saratoga had little patience. It's nothing more than construction, not a critical illness. At this time, Her only reputation was to guard the warehouse dutifully. As the head maid, even if the waiting got boring, she could endure it. Anyone who dares to speak loudly or run around in the warehouse, no matter adults or little girls, will be asked to leave. Seeing that Sugu had woken up, Sheng Sheng quickly picked up the towel that had been prepared to help wipe away the sweat. Shaking his head to be more awake, Consultant Su asked, "How long has it been?" Reputation took out the pocket watch in his apron pocket and confirmed the time, "Half an hour." It doesn't matter how long it took, it failed again as Sai sounded. In fact, this is not the first time Sugu has built it. He has built it several times before, but all ended in failure. The construction of York City was far less smooth than when it was first built. When I woke up, I had slender and toned thighs. As an outstanding head maid, her reputation handed the water to Sugu. Taking the water glass, Sugu drank it down in one gulp, and then sat on the chair brought over by Sheng Sheng. He leaned back in the chair, his head hanging down, looking exhausted. "I'll sit down first." It didn't consume any physical energy, and the body wasn't actually tired. It was just that the mental pressure was too great. The history and memory in steel are too stressful, especially when you don't know who to replace, and the explosion appears next to you, with a deafening sound, and you feel like a rag doll flying in the air. Many times it felt like riding a roller coaster, the kind where you climb to the highest point and rush off the track, or like bungee jumping without ropes, and there is still a concrete floor below. After resting for a while, when Sugu wanted to get up and continue building, Sheng Sheng said, "Master, why don't you start building after lunch?" Despite repeated failures, Sugu's mentality has not collapsed. After all, he has been poisoned several times beforehand, and he is mentally prepared. It is simply a dream to build a battleship, and don't even think about submarines. There is a destroyer. It's already worthy of your enjoyment, there's no way you can build anyone else. There was no immediate reply, and the head maid remained silent. After waiting for a long time, Sugu said, "Since it's already this point, let's go eat first. The body is the capital of revolution. Anyway, I do my best to obey fate. I have brushed so many buffs and still can't build it. There is nothing I can do." Following the reputation, I went to the cafeteria. There were already many people sitting there, so there was no need for the head maid to fetch food. Yuxian had specially prepared a sumptuous and delicious meal. "How is it, Missouri actually likes to join in the fun?" Sugu replied angrily, "What else can I do?" His expression was not to say disappointed, but far from upbeat. He didn't see anyone new around him. There is no need to say more about the result. Having completely adapted to Chinese food, Saratoga held a big bowl and sat next to Sugu. "Brother-in-law, what did you see?" Pursing his lips, Sugu said, "Those pictures were messy. One moment we were on a carrier-based aircraft, and the next second we were in a submarine, and the atmosphere became depressing. What I remember clearly is the high bridge, but it was interrupted later. If we follow that battleship, we should be able to build Fuzhou." "Haha, my neck can be longer." Missouri bit her chopsticks and asked, "Is that all?" "I only remember part of it. I should have remembered more, but my memory has become blurry. When the history and memories of steel reappear in my mind, it is completely like a dream. In fact, there is no way to think normally." Sugu simply told what he saw and heard, and Missouri said, "You seem to be in good spirits." "Of course, I can build it 100 more times." "It's useless, you're African." Sugu did not become angry. On the contrary, he said calmly, "Even if no one has built it, look at my garrison. Who dares to laugh at me?" I originally wanted to make a point, but Missouri couldn't say a word. "No one can compare with such a garrison." Missouri said on a whim, "If you haven't succeeded in building it by night, would you like me to change my clothes, straighten my hair, and pretend to be Iowa to make you happy. The Iowa has not appeared anywhere yet, and I don't know its image. If you dare to do this, I will definitely find someone to beat you to death. This kind of prank, once the truth is discovered, will make people fall from the sky to the ground immediately. Sugu feels disgusting when he thinks about it. Of course, he also knows that Missouri is very measured in doing things and will not make any excessive jokes. If she is a little lowly and doesn't have such big ideas, she might suddenly want to do a prank. As long as you have a reputation by your side, you can feel at ease. After lunch, Lexington asked thoughtfully, "Admiral, would you like to take a nap first and get some rest? It's too late to sleep. It's just today anyway, so forget it if it can't be built." Came to the warehouse again. This time there were not as many people following him as in the morning, but Sugu still asked for a hug, including an extra one from Lexington. After pouring himself a glass of water and drinking it in one gulp, Sugu pounded it on the iron sheet. After the endless darkness came light. At a glance, one could see the warships sailing on the sea. There were no huge turrets, but the ship islands and flight decks came into view. However, before I could see clearly what kind of aircraft carrier it was, the perspective quickly zoomed in, and then turned to a carrier-based aircraft pilot. The hoarse roar was very familiar, and the blue sea was getting closer and closer. I have experienced this many times, thinking that I would be lifted up in front of the sea, but this time I crashed directly into the sea, and my eyes were dark again. To be honest, Sugu didn't like to appreciate the history of aircraft carriers. His perspective would always shift to the carrier-based aircraft pilots. I can't stand the situation where the camera rotates once the battle begins. This time, I finally changed to the perspective of a bystander. There were two officers in front of me, and I could understand what they were saying. "Do you want a drink? Give me a drink. They're done. Haha, I just lost countless carrier-based aircraft. Not only that, we also sank at least one of their aircraft carriers, a destroyer and a tanker. Speaking of which, we also sank." Obviously seeing the shock on the other officer's face, he quickly reacted, "Haha, this is already the second time. We sank, we emerged again, we were ghosts. Blue ghost. I descend from the shadows." Laughter started, and gradually the two officers holding wine glasses in front of them began to become distorted again, and their voices became smaller and smaller. In the end, only one sentence was heard, "There is a dance tomorrow." Deafening cheers rang out, and the pilot who climbed down from the carrier-based aircraft looked exhausted but could not hide his excitement. We had our revenge. We sank Ziwikaku, the aircraft carrier Ziwikaku. At this time, the destroyers were fighting outside the townhouse warehouse. They didn't have to go to class today. The stone table in the shade of the tree is filled with snacks, including biscuits, honey money, hazelnuts, melon seeds, and cakes. Akagi is sitting next to him. Rather than waiting for the Admiral's good news or caring about him, her main purpose is to eat delicious food. "There has been no movement." This was Ruhi's voice. Akagi chewed the cake and slurred his words, "Probably we will build a powerful ship, girl. The longer the time, the better. This means that the ship girl that appears is more powerful and more likely to be a battleship." Having stayed in the academy as an instructor for a long time, Akagi had seen him many times in the academy. When the new admirals went to build and came out in a short time, the people around them immediately cheered. Even if it succeeds, the destroyer is stable. Which admiral took longer? Everyone was worried that this bastard couldn't build a capital ship. Of course, it was not impossible. Several hours passed, but in the end, the fate of failure still came. There was once someone who stayed for nearly 5 hours and ended up with nothing. You could see his expression that wanted to kill someone, and heard his heart-rending wails echoing throughout the college. "My turpits! It's just a little bit closer. I could have built the turpits. Ruhi wanted to go into the warehouse to have a look, but was afraid of disturbing Sugu. She asked, "Do you think it can be built successfully?" Akagi picked up the cake and put it in his mouth. "I don't know." "Don't eat it." Ziwi looked at Akagi in rare displeasure. He usually thought foodies were cute. The dignity was long gone, and Akagi replied nonchalantly, "Even if I don't eat, I don't know." "Don't you care about the admiral?" "It doesn't matter." Akagi asked back, "Ziwi, do you hope that the admiral can build it successfully?" Ruhi put his hands on the back of his head, and she replied, "Give me as much as I can, so that he won't be reluctant." "Dishonest Ziwi." Akagi smiled. Ruhi grinned and snatched the cake in front of Akagi. She ate a piece, then stood up, and finally made up her mind, "I want to go and see it." "Go ahead." Akagi knew very well that it was not that easy to interrupt the construction process, but everyone was usually very careful. Ziwi glanced in one direction from the corner of his eye, and happened to see Saratoga looking over. She withdrew her gaze and pushed the door into the warehouse. Saratoga was talking to Princeton when she saw Ziwikaku enter the warehouse, and she followed. Inside the warehouse, Saratoga saw Ziwi talking to Renzhung, and there was no strange conversation. Then she left the warehouse and returned to Princeton. Wearing a bunny ear headband, Princeton asked, "Sister Gaga, what did you find?" "It's nothing." Brother-in-law closed his eyes and put his hand on the rusty iron sheet. Princeton asked curiously, "I wonder what the admiral saw." Saratoga said, "It would be great if we could be together. Holding my brother-in-law's hand, we can see the past history with him. It would be wonderful." They didn't say a few words when suddenly something sounded from the warehouse. Sitting relatively close, Ziwi rushed in first, followed by Saratoga, and Akagi stood up slowly. Ziwi first saw the girl standing on the steel. A white hairband with blue feather hairpins in her ears, and long flaxen hair hanging behind her back. A delicate and pretty face seemed familiar, but the expression was more serious. Wearing a black cape with a hood, a red chest, a neat black long-sleeved dress, white gloves on her hands, and a pair of long black silk legs. The mechanical arm stuck at the waist is connected to the slender black flight deck. In short, he is dressed like Essex. However, the girl with a gun in one hand and a magazine in the other was handsome in a way that Essex definitely didn't have. Feeling like he was facing a formidable enemy, Ziwi pushed Saratoga beside him and asked, "Who?" "I don't know, I'm not my sister anyway." At the same time, Sugu opened his eyes and raised his head. "You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 647. The similar eyebrows and eyes make people feel strange, but they can still tell the difference. The girl has a slimmer figure than Lexington, who has a plump figure of a married woman. If you look carefully, you will see that not only the hairstyles are different, but also the details on the faces are different. For example, a girl's face is thinner, her chin is pointed, and her red eyes appear narrower and longer. Apart from these, it is obvious that Yi Jian's temperament is completely different. Lexington is full of tenderness, the girl has a straight face, and her thin lips are tightly pursed. She is cold and handsome. You can also use the word cold and charming. In short, it is definitely not a Lexington prank, like Missouri said, changing clothes and pretending to be a new person. My wife won't do such boring things. She rarely does pranks, and she definitely won't act like this. It's not like she was whipped when they met in York City, but I don't blame her. After all, she saw an incredible view under her skirt. The girl was dressed in black. She was obviously very fleshy, and her whole body was wrapped tightly, leaving no chance for anyone to take advantage of it, so there would be no such strange unfolding. At this time, She put away the gun and magazines in her hands, but the flight deck was still well placed beside her, and then jumped from the steel ruins to the ground. The sense of closeness from the depths of the soul makes it easy for people to identify Sugu's identity, and his voice is clear, "Are you my commander?" Let's not talk about the girl's identity. Being able to build a ship girl means that she is still a European. Sugu nodded happily and said, "I woke you up from the steel. We usually keep talking about construction, but we only say this after getting familiar with it and no one cares about it. The construction is treated like an object, which is discriminatory for sensitive ship girls. Usually in formal occasions, or in newspapers, speeches, etc., words like wake up are generally used." After receiving the answer, the girl's voice sounded like a system speech, completely devoid of emotion. "The order has been confirmed. From now on, you will be identified as the commander. I am Lexington, Ethiopia." Before she could finish speaking, the familiar appearance made people pay attention. Saratoga, who had already entered the warehouse, interrupted the girl and said loudly, "What the hell, Lexington, you are not my sister at all." The girl looked at Saratoga's appearance. The other person's appearance was similar to hers, but only a little bit. To say that her sister had no feelings at all, she said, "I don't have a sister like you. In fact, there is no concept of a fake sister." After all, Sugu can find something wrong, and of course Saratoga, as the younger sister, can also. At present, she just felt curious and strange, but when she heard the girl's words, she almost exploded with anger. "What did you say? The ship girl has just woken up and has a lot of knowledge and common sense, so she will not be deceived. He also understands many things. The person who awakens him is the commander. What is his identity, who he is and what power he has? Especially Yuxian and Fuzang were born to know how to cook. Apart from common sense, everyone's understanding of battleships in history is different." Knowing Saratoga's identity, she seemed to realize something was wrong in her tone. The girl explained, "I am Essex-class Lexington." At this moment, Sugu completely understood the identity of the girl. The eighth ship of the Essex-class aircraft carrier, the Lexington, was originally named Cabot. Since the Lexington sank in the Battle of the Coral Sea, it was renamed the Lexington to commemorate it, and its hull number was CV-16. During the Pacific War, the Japanese repeatedly claimed to have sunk the Lexington, but she always appeared in the next battle. Coupled with the dark blue camouflage painting, she earned the nickname Blue Ghost. Upon hearing the self-introduction, Saratoga kept a straight face and still frowned quite persistently. "I am Saratoga. You are Lexington, but you are not my sister." The girl looked at Sugu. She came to a strange world. The only people she could rely on were the admiral, the commander, and the commander. Seeing such a situation, Sugu explained, "Saratoga's sister is a Lexington-class Lexington. She is currently the secretary ship of the garrison. You are also a Lexington, and she feels strange." The girl took a deep look at Saratoga, paused and said, "Does it have the same name?" "The commander already has Lexington, which is normal. But I am the only Blue Ghost. In that case, you'd better call me, let's say, CV-16. At the same time, Ziwihi also learned the identity of CV-16, and knew that historically, it was the culprit that sunk him. But I have no fear at all. Instead, I want to avenge my past humiliation. I'm just a newcomer anyway. Because there are many models of the same class and the construction speed is fast, like dumplings, everyone calls the Essex class dumplings. In fact, there is a reason for her thin skin and big stuffing, and she has a super fleshy figure under her tight black clothes." Ruhi pinched her chin and tilted her head. She was afraid that the world would not be in chaos. Essex-class Lexington, MRS dumpling. He found that CV-16 was looking at him again. From Ruhi's expression, He had already noticed that the two people were not dealing with him. After thinking for a while, he thought of the joints. However, Sugu still introduced it well, "That's Ruhi. Now you are sisters. I have no self-consciousness at all, or I feel particularly uncomfortable just by looking at it. I always feel that the smile that looks at me is disdainful." Seeing that CV-16 didn't seem to understand, Ziwahi wanted to tease her, so she continued, "Lexington is the wife, and you are also Lexington, so the concubine, the second wife." The expression on his face remained unchanged, and there was no sign of anger, but Sugu could still see the corners of CV-16's mouth twitching as he wanted to say something. "Second aunt or 16th aunt? Wow." The bullet was loaded, and CV-16 held the gun expressionlessly, but he was not pointing it at Ziwahi, but he was pulling the trigger. "You can't beat me." Ruhi waved his hand, "Not to mention such a newcomer, even if a fighting maniac like York City works hard every day, he is still not an enemy of Yahi. Zeppelin serves as an instructor in the academy and is recognized for his ability. When they first met and practiced, they were no match for them. Then there was a conflict. The person who started the trouble was Ruhi." Sugu took a deep breath and said, "Ruhi, that's enough." Thinking that this could not go on, Sugu changed the subject, introduced the reputation of being silent from beginning to end, and then said, "My name is Sugu, welcome to join our guard house." Ignoring Ziwahi's provocation, CV-16 nodded and explained, "Essex Class Lexington, hull number CV-16, officially settled in your port area. No matter what difficulties I face, I will not back down. Commander, you can use me as a weapon, but I am not a wife." Sugu wanted to sigh, "Please don't use a serious introduction, which will damage your handsomeness." Slowly walking into the warehouse, Akagi smiled happily. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 648. Due to its similar appearance to Lexington, the appearance of CV-16 made everyone waiting outside the warehouse curious. The destroyer stopped the game, and Xiaozai and North Carolina put down the lifted amethyst. The fish that had been beaten to the head, no, U-47 was still lying on the grass, while Z-17 took his sister Z-18 to watch the fun. "Okay, Hindenburg, you lose, choose one of Kaohsiung's late-night snacks or London's cuisine." Missouri patted Hindenburg's shoulder and walked away. "It really looks like Lexington, but it's not an angel, like a Valkyrie." Wichita asked curiously, "Who is it?" "Have no idea. It looks like Sister Lexington, but it also looks like a dumpling." After taking CV-16 out of the warehouse, although he was more exhausted than at noon, the shipbuilding was successful. It could be said that Sugu was on stimulants. He didn't look at all lethargic. It's just that the admiral did not receive any praise for building a powerful aircraft carrier. They all gathered around to watch the CV-16. This was quite unpleasant. It's not like Ko would be shy when faced with onlookers, hiding behind her sister and not daring to see people. Even though many people were looking at him and discussing something but couldn't hear it at all, CV-16 was still generous. It would be better to say that he didn't care about it at all. Sugu once again introduced to everyone, the Lexington, the 8th Essex-class ship. He picked up Kozai, who accidentally ran in front of him without realizing it. Missouri introduced himself, the 3rd Iowa-class ship Missouri. Having a good impression of Missouri, which is also a US ship, CV-16 nodded and said, "Hello." "Well, hello." Missouri smiled. There was one person in the crowd who was squeezing the most vigorously. When CV-16 looked over, she only saw a woman with white hair tied into a ponytail with her arms folded across her chest, saying, "This is the South Dakota-class ship, the USS South Dakota. You call her South Dakota just be fat, Darko. I'm Washington, North Carolina no too. Asshole." While introducing everyone to CV-16, the blonde girl Saratoga left the warehouse and ran to the office to find her sister. She usually likes to say bad things about her sister, being extremely scheming, dominating her brother-in-law, and being a bitch. In fact, Saratoga is a serious sister controller. Although it was also the Lexington, she had no feeling for CV-16 at all. The looks are similar, but the temperament is wrong. More like Essex than my sister. Besides, it's not just Lexington who wants to be a sister. I lived in the townhouse for a long time, and the two of us would go out together every time. After her brother-in-law left, she became depressed, and her sister stayed with her. Live in Gießen, work alone, and arrange your own schooling. Although I have no interest in studying, I know my sister's good intentions. They chose names together, sister Shen Yun, and myself Shen Xia. Usually when we go to bed together at night, they will nag each other after they have done something wrong. What's CV-16? It's just a fake with my sister's name on it. Standing by the filing cabinet in the office, Lexington was organizing information. Naturally, she didn't know what was happening in the warehouse. As the footsteps approached, she saw her sister running over. Gia, you are so urgent, what can you do? Brother-in-law, I'll take a sip of water first. Saratoga picked up the cup. Looking away from her panting sister, Lexington continued to sort out the information. She asked, your brother-in-law succeeded? What kind of ship girl? I usually lack exercise, so I was talking to Princeton outside the warehouse. Because Akagi had taken over the black tea, I was already thirsty without drinking it. At this time, after finishing one cup, he took the teapot and poured himself another cup. He drank it all in one gulp, and Saratoga said, success, brother-in-law built Lexington. It was still funny at first, but Lexington's expression turned to astonishment for a moment. She thought that if the construction failed, she would comfort the admiral. If the construction is successful, they will be praised. After all, men are like children. It's not surprising that the warship girls already owned by the tutelage were built. The Tutelary House does not have the same ship girls. However, I have been to many garrison fortresses with the admiral and I have seen a lot of them. Just as Xiao Zai is unwilling to attack with Bazai, thinking that the other party is a fake. It is easy for two identical ship girls to have conflicts, so I will adjust the relationship between the two of them well. I just didn't think about it happening to me. What if two Lexingtons appeared? I didn't think about it at all. However, Saratoga quickly dispelled her worries and said quickly, brother-in-law has built the Essex-class Lexington. Not reacting so quickly, Lexington said to himself, Essex-class Lexington. The ship girl who inherited your ship name, Dumpling's sister CV-16. Her, CV-16, Blue Phantom. In order to guard the mansion, Lexington also learned all kinds of knowledge. Muttering to herself, she was completely relieved. Fake Lexington. Saratoga was even angrier than Lexington. What is fake and genuine? She is her and I am me. Seeing that her sister was indifferent, Saratoga felt that she was a bit silly for being so excited. She provoked a discord, Blue Ghost Lexington, he is very beautiful and handsome. I think my brother-in-law likes him very much. The movement of Lexington's hand stopped. Saratoga looked at it and felt happy, only hearing her sister's voice. Does your brother-in-law like many people? Lexington paused. Yuxian, Richelieu, Xianghe, Ruhe, Washington, Missouri, you should ask, who else doesn't your brother-in-law like? Saratoga wanted to make a point, but Nana was speechless. Lexington took her time and stuffed the last file into the filing cabinet. She asked, where is everyone? Coming to the shade of the trees outside the warehouse, Lexington saw CV-16 in black. She remembered that she and the admiral were joking a few days ago, Even though Xiaozai was exactly the same, Bizai did not regard Xiaozai as his daughter. CV-16 has a similar figure and appearance to me, and I feel very close to him. However, she would not be treated as a daughter, but as a sister. They were talking and saw Lexington coming over. Sugu introduced Lexington's identity to CV-16. She was very clear about the origin of her name. She didn't like others comparing her to others, and she also hated others imposing another person's impression on her. However, as a newcomer, CV-16 did not hold back. She stood up and said respectfully, "Senior Lexington. No need to call me senior, it's great that you can come to the town hall. Having a junior makes Lexington happy, and it would be best if there was no one behind." She only saw the cold CV-16 hesitate for a moment, and then said seriously, "Senior Lexington. I am the Essex class CV-16 who inherited your name. I am the blue ghost, not yours." "Daughter." Opening his mouth, "What is this?" After a moment of reaction, Lexington first looked at Missouri, shook his head, and the brown-haired lady immediately turned her head. Turning his head slowly to look at his admiral, Sugu said, "It was none of my business." Lexington finally looked at everyone, and everyone was silent. Once a gentle wife shows off her power, no one will avoid her sharp edge. There must be a limit to your joking. Also, leave this child's education to me. Under Lexington's education, CV-16 truly matured and grew. This is a story later. Missouri, who had no integrity, pushed Sugu and said softly, "Lexington, Saratoga, CV-16. Suddenly something occurred to him. These were sisters, mother and daughter. Sugu suddenly felt so evil. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 649. On the bench under the magnolia tree, Sugu was rubbing Cushing's head. Little Loli ran away, and Missouri came over again. After looking at Missouri, Advisor Su asked, "What do you think of CV-16? I just woke up and I feel so cute. I can actually explain everyone's jokes in a serious manner." Thinking of the performance of CV-16, Sugu said, "It's a little cold, a little dull, and the feeling doesn't match the temperament. How many days have you been awake since CV-16? Let me tell you, you have lived for more than 20 years. Were you like this when you were a child? But she is a ship girl, she should grow up quickly." Of course Missouri held her chin. He has a very good personality, and the parameters of his ship's equipment are also quite excellent. If he grows up, he will become very powerful. It's amazing. If the future can be modified, the Essex class is simply ruthless. If not, it will be difficult to compete with established aircraft carriers. Thinking of the handsome image of CV-16, Advisor Su said, "Missouri, do you think there are any ship girls who have extraordinary powers as soon as they wake up? What do you want to say?" Sugu explained, "York City has just woken up, and its ability to operate carrier-based aircraft is poor. Well, CV-16 should be called Iceberg Beauty, and she still has a serious character. I think of those iceberg beauties when I was in school when I was a child, regardless of classmates or studies. Sister, school girl, usually monitor or study committee member. Excellent grades were everything at that time. Even if she was indifferent, everyone thought she should be like this and admired her. If a good iceberg beauty gets a duck egg in the exam, she feels very good. Make a play." Missouri waved his hand, "I still have to work hard step by step to get where I am today. I don't know how much hardship I have endured. Do you want strong power when you wake up? Ha, don't think about it, it's impossible. There is everything in dreams, Suk Bader in the dream, it was still a star destroyer." Sugu was discouraged, "Then there's nothing we can do." Suddenly thinking of something, Missouri laughed evilly, and she threatened Sugu, you said that the CV-16 Iceberg Beauty would be a show if its skills were bad. Do you mean that it doesn't matter in York City? Sugu didn't panic, and looked calm. Students with funny brains, no matter how bad their grades are, everyone will take it for granted. I'm going to talk to York City. Suguman didn't care. It doesn't matter if you tell her, she doesn't care anymore. Just show off, what's the point of being serious? York City has nothing to do with you as the admiral. Well, I might give you another whip. Discovering something again, Missouri suddenly covered her chest and said, hey, don't look, there's a needle eye. Looking away, Sugu said, I didn't look. Missouri taunted, you have the nerve to say that. Wear your own vest, Sugu confessed, thinking to himself, who told you to have such big headlights? I only put it on to keep cool, not for you to see. I've seen it many times. Missouri glared, then laughed to himself, by the way, CV-16 finally doesn't wear that black suit. Sugu replied, yesterday Lexington took her to Chuangziu to buy clothes. Dressed tightly, CV-16 must be frigid. Don't slander people, that's just a dumpling-level feature. While talking, Sugu remembered seeing CV-16 in the morning. She didn't wear a short skirt or hot pants like most people, she wore a pair of long pants. Compared to everyone else who was wearing cooler clothes, especially someone who was wearing nothing under his vest, even though he couldn't see anything. In short, CV-16 is meticulously dressed, with all the buttons on his shirt except the top one buttoned, and there is no benefit at all. Missouri said, it's not as delicious as dumplings. Why have you become so dirty? Sugu sighed, no, you have always been so dirty. Missouri lifted her hair and tucked it behind her ears, looked at her with eyes, and smiled sweetly again, Master, come and play. From today on, you are the flagship of the highest level. Missouri was funny, which girl did you like today? I'm tired of it already. We at Hindenburg are still shepherds. Hindenburg resisted too much. I tied him up and gave him medicine. I couldn't help but feel happy. After one time, I'll know the taste after eating the marrow. Sugu said, Missouri, you are hopeless. The same as you. Sugu looked at Missouri up and down, I want to ask Missouri's mother how much it costs. Missouri stretched out her hand and spread her fingers, no problem, just this. Suddenly he found Fletcher walking by, and the two fell silent. When the girl walked away, Sugu said, CV-16 is a little dazed just after waking up. How about Missouri just waking up? Actually, I was a little dazed when I just woke up. Sugu said, you should be able to rest assured if you hand over CV-16 to Lexington. The character of the ship girl is fixed as soon as she wakes up, but education is still very important. Although you can't make a ship girl's character change drastically, the character of a Yuxian wife will definitely not become as heroic as Wichita's. Think about Bazai again. If she encounters a big change, she will become the true lonely queen of the north. The character of the ship girl can be changed, but it is a little difficult to change. I wonder how Lexington educates CV-16. I know. A voice suddenly sounded, and a hand suddenly slapped on the shoulder, startling Sugu. He turned around and saw Guam, who was bending over and placing his hands on the back of the bench. Sugu said, Guam, don't suddenly appear behind me. I called you. Seeing that you were chatting happily, you probably didn't hear me, Guam explained. Sugu asked expressionlessly, how long have you been here? Just arrived. Sugu felt relieved, but Guam was also a girl with a cheerful personality. She held her cheeks in her hands and smiled brightly, Admiral, do you believe what I say? Believe it or not, Sugu decided not to continue this topic. He asked, Guam, you just said, do you know how Lexington educates CV-16? I happened to hear it in the library, Lexington actually found mine, but they didn't avoid it, they just kept their voices quieter. Staying in Akaga's room at night, no Lexingtonians were seen during the day, and as the Admiral, he was completely unaware. Gugu curiously asked, "What did they say?" "What should I say? Let me think about it." "Wait." "Good." Guam thought about what he had seen and heard, and met Lexington and CV-16 in the library, like mother and daughter or sisters. They only listened to half of their conversation, first hearing Lexington teach CV-16 how to tell whether someone was joking. If it is a joke, there is no need to explain it seriously. Then he talked about how everyone in the garrison was doing. CV-16, you should be able to feel that Ruhi doesn't like you, but you don't have to argue with her. She doesn't like you, but if you encounter danger, she will definitely stand in front of you and will not save you until death. We are a garrison, and this is a contradiction among the people. If you meet someone outside, even if Xianghe scolds you, she will scold you back. Everyone likes to joke. If you don't like it, just tell everyone. Unless you forget, they won't make fun of you specifically. We call the avant-garde Quoi, Yuxian is called Leg Fairy, Helena is called Haima, Hood is called Seimao, and Bismarck is called Cat. Haha, one is called Seimao and the other is Cat. The two of them are just right. Many of the nicknames of the governor's house are "it's the admiral's fault." There's no malice, it's just fun. Even if it's his words, it doesn't matter if you call him Xianyu, Brother Su or Mr. Su can do it, he won't be angry. I didn't specifically listen to what they said, how Lexington educates CV-16. I ran to other bookshelves to look for books, but didn't find the book I wanted, so I decided to go back to where they were and hear their conversation again. In the tutelage, everyone is a good person, but it's different outside. If anyone speaks frivolously to you, then give them a slap in the face. If they want to touch you, then break their hands and feet. It doesn't matter, tutelage. I will always have your back, don't worry about causing trouble to the admiral, this is a problem he should deal with. I vaguely seem to hear the sentence, we belong to the admiral, both body and mind, everything belongs to him. He is actually very possessive. Protect yourself and don't let outsiders take advantage of you. In fact, everything was fine in the front, but the subsequent conversation became unexpected. I only heard CV-16 ask, what if the admiral wants to do something to me? He will definitely not touch you, Lexington said firmly. What if it happens? You can hide away, you can resist, but you must not hurt him. What should I do if I can't hide? If he resists, he may be injured. If he suddenly becomes animalistic, there is really no way, you are his ship girl anyway, and everything we have belongs to him anyway. Then wash your body well afterward, and avoid him next time. The conversation finally became normal again, and it didn't seem too normal. CV-16, as a ship girl, taking care of the admiral is the most important thing for us. He likes meat and doesn't like vegetables, but he can't eat vegetables. In order to make him eat, you can pick it up with chopsticks and feed it to him. He will eat. It's very childish to eat soft food rather than hard food. If that doesn't work, you can feed it by mouth. That's it. This was CV-16's thoughtful voice again, poisoned. Make him supper with your own hands, he will be very happy. But I can't, I'm a weapon. Then please ask him to make you a midnight snack, and then praise him well. Lexington's voice did not stop. CV-16, let me tell you. Even if you are a weapon, you are his weapon. As a ship girl, nothing is more important than the admiral. Like him, take care of him, and pamper him. If you raise him to be a waste, then he will never be able to leave you. It doesn't matter if he is fat or ugly, or if he has a bad temper. There is nothing we can do about it as someone other than us. Bear with him, no matter where he goes, he will eventually come back to us. I heard CV-16 ask again, what if he really leaves us? I didn't want to say it, but you will know sooner or later. He has already left once, and I forgive him. If there is another time. Lost in memories, the expression on Guam's face became increasingly worried. Sugu waited for a long time here, and he urged Guam again. Guam looked at Sugu, she paused and said, I really can't say, you can ask Lexington yourself how to educate CV-16. Anyway, let me remind you, Lexington really likes you, and we are better than each other. No, I hope you can like her all your life, so that you will definitely enjoy a life like heaven. If you dare to abandon her, it was a fluke in the past. If you do it again, we can only see you in formalin. If possible, I want a hand. Sugu was angry. Hey, Guam, don't talk about such scary topics. What about formalin? I don't understand. Guam didn't want to say it, and Sugu had no choice. When he saw CV-16 in the afternoon, he didn't find anything wrong. She is still a cool girl who doesn't like to joke and is quite handsome. The only surprise was that she seemed to like small animals. She looked at Ginger, Fish Cake, Oscar, the three little wolves from U81, and the big tiger, with a lot of longing in her eyes. But at night, things developed beyond Sugu's expectation. He first saw CV-16 holding Kent's big tiger, rubbing the big tiger's face, and walking towards him. Kent is not good at saying no, and she will try her best to respond to anyone in the guardhouse who asks for help. Now that Atlanta is eating him to death, he has no choice but to work as a clerk in a coffee shop. Of course, it can be seen that she is still very happy to be recognized. I think CV-16 asked her to borrow the big tiger, and she agreed. The big tiger is so cute, and Miss Hood's ginger and fish cakes are also very good. Little pets are all cute, Sugu completely agrees. I heard that the Admiral is very good at cooking, although he was originally called Commander. CV-16 quickly changed his name when he heard that everyone called him Admiral. Since CV-16 has a request, Sugu will certainly not refuse. Putting a piece of fried rice on the dining table, I heard CV-16 say again, I'm so sorry that I bothered you to cook it yourself just for my casual joke. It doesn't matter. Admiral, don't you want to eat? I don't have to. CV-16 clearly showed no expression. How can it be okay if I'm the only one eating? Well, I'm very happy. You can eat too, open your mouth, to eat or not to eat? This was a very difficult question, but the girl kept her hand raised, and Sugu finally decided to eat. As soon as I took a bite of my meal, I turned my head and immediately saw Nevada, with York City next to it. The two people took a deep look here, then quickly left the canteen, walked into the darkness and disappeared. Sugu was still worried when he heard CV-16's voice again, Senior Lexington likes the Admiral the most. Of course Sugu knew that his wife liked him. CV-16 continued, the Admiral's embrace must be very warm. Sugu suddenly didn't know how to answer the question. Is this something a girl can say? Are we that close? You can only have 50 points of favor at most, right? I want to try your embrace. Well, everyone has a weak side. And I am your ship girl, and you are the only support in my life. Sugu was shocked and said this with a straight face, girl, are you broken? You are obviously frigid, so there is something slightly wrong with this plot. There must be something wrong with the 1.5 programmers again. Yes, there must be a bug. Nothing happened during the day, but it suddenly turned into a wedding boat at night. I didn't give you a ring. Finally everything was over, and Sugu found Lexington. Madam, you said you wanted to educate CV-16 well, but you must have spoiled her. I only saw Lexington's confused expression and asked, why did I play with her? I educated her well, but you are all unreliable. Did she do something else? When I think of that scene, there is no warmth, only a bit of horror. CV-16 did that kind of thing seriously. It was just an accident. After a few days, CV-16 never did that kind of thing again and finally returned to normal. But everything did not end so easily. From then on, CV-16 truly got the titles of Jiaotai, second concubine, and 16th concubine. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai-De Rong Yan. Chapter 650. The ship girl has common sense when she wakes up, but other than that it's hard to say. Cooking, art, painting, every ship girl has something she's good at, and some she's not good at. In short, every ship girl is finished before she wakes up. She still needs to learn a lot. This is a long process. Lexington is in charge of the CV-16's outlook these days, and it's hard to say whether it's good or bad. In addition to teaching 3 concepts, Lexington also teaches many things, such as combat and how to control carrier-based aircraft. It's just that for Lexington, fighting is very important. There is a master and a master. How to be an excellent wife is more important. CV-16 still has a lot to learn. Not only cooking skills, but also housekeeping skills. For example, when cleaning windows, you must first wipe them with a wet towel, then dry them with a dry towel, etc. In fact, when it comes to housekeeping ability, Lexington can't even compare with the reputation of the head maid, not even with the counterattack. After all, there are specialties in the art. However, Lexington's level is already not bad, and I don't want CV-16 to affect the 2 maids. How can a person who wants to be a wife insist on being a maid? Housekeeping is almost enough. Compared to Lexington, Sugu is much simpler. He is only responsible for teaching various theoretical knowledge. For example, how to judge the type of deep-sea ship girls, and what are their parameters, especially the level of air defense capabilities. There are also theoretical data on various carrier-based aircraft, how much bombing is worth, where these data come from, etc. In fact, when it comes to theory, Sugu is not as good as Zeppelin. It's just that Zeppelin is currently obsessed with teaching primary school students, and his daily task is to tell stories to driver Z, so he is not going to disturb her. It didn't matter that he didn't seek fame as a teacher or Zeppelin, as the husband and wife worked together to make ends meet. In this way, after several days of education, CV-16 can be said to have grown up rapidly. Judging from professionals Missouri and Zeppelin, the CV-16's training level has at least exceeded 10. Judging from CV-16's pursed lips, she was still very happy. However, Zeppelin quickly reminded her that it was easy to improve the level of practice in the early stages, and could even be improved several levels in one battle, but it became more difficult as you progressed to the later stages. The rapid growth of CV-16 should be a happy thing, but many people are unhappy. Washington didn't think much of it. Lexington focused on teaching CV-16, and now she is temporarily acting as the secretaryship. Since Sugu was not that interested in CV-16, he spent a lot of time in the office every day. Working slowly and chatting while working, Washington was very satisfied. Although I used to run a law firm, I repeatedly emphasized to my assistants during work that they must concentrate on their work and not be distracted. I just have to say something dissatisfying, it is that South Dakota came to the office frequently, and finally had to use an axe to ask him out. For example, Richelieu would not show his displeasure. In fact, many people would not show it. However, there were also people who showed their dissatisfaction directly on their faces. They were Ziwihi and Saratoga. Ziwihi is okay, she is not a wedding bride, and her personality is restrained. Saratoga was more direct, first telling her sister directly, "You can't be too partial." Lexington's quick response to her, "You might as well keep learning." Saratoga showed no interest in learning. In order to stimulate CV-16, Saratoga thought of another way. For example, wearing a ring, holding Sugu's arm in front of CV-16, and using any method to emphasize the identity of his wedding ship. This was not exciting for CV-16, and she had no idea about Sugu. Saratoga's behavior made the raiders, Missouri, Guam, Kaga, Blucher and others unhappy who had eaten a lot of dog food. When they saw her, they were like, "The wedding ship is coming and the oath ring diamond." Such jokes as, "It's so big and I have a wedding dress." "You can't lose the rice by completely stealing the chicken." Finally, the two sisters-in-law united. In fact, I should say one sister-in-law and a pseudo-sister-in-law. They jointly found York City in the coffee shop and then took them to the corner. With short blonde hair, York City was a little panicked. Ziwihi and Saratoga are not only powerful, they usually like to bully them in exercises, so they will definitely be up to no good in the morning. Listening to the beautiful and melodious music, Saratoga snapped her fingers. "Kent, please serve 3 cups of milk tea." Ruhi disagreed, "I think it would be better to drink wine." Saratoga snapped her fingers again, 3 beers. Ziwihi hesitated for a second, "I still want to clear the bar." "You're annoying. Even though we have become teammates, there are still small conflicts." The only person at this table was York City, who didn't dare to make any comments and sat on the wicker chair calmly. "York City, it's not long since you joined the garrison." Saratoga put his hands on the small round table and asked. Yorktown nodded like a chicken pecking at rice, with the attitude of a junior and a junior. Ziwihi put his hands under his chin, as if applying for an employee's personnel job, and she asked, "How advanced are you now?" "I don't know," York City replied, not in a perfunctory manner. She had indeed never conducted a test specifically, and had no way of judging her strength or level of practice. "I was still very interested in it before, but I have become more and more lazy during this period. I feel like I can't get a breakthrough no matter how hard I practice." Saratoga was determined to get straight to the point. "York City, we have something to trouble you about." Facing these two pranksters, York City first thought of refusing and not joining in the fun. Anyway, she was getting smarter as she learned more. "I've been busy lately." Saratoga raised her chin, leaned back on the chair, and stared at the ceiling. Her tone was indifferent. "Oh, you are busy with something, tell me and see if we can help you." "I spent all day doing nothing, drinking tea and reading. I read a lot of comics. I also had a good discussion with Bazai, and our relationship became closer." There was nothing serious to say that could be used to evade. York City was hesitant and speechless. However, when she looked for help at her sister not far away, Bumblebee immediately turned her head away, and then took Northampton away. "Anyway, sister or something, just apologize afterwards. We have to deal with Saratoga and Ziwihi. Those two are powerful, lucky, and liked by the Admiral, so let's forget it." After asking for help to no avail, York City asked tremblingly, "Gia, Ruhi, do you have anything to do? As long as something can be done, I will make sure it is completed." She also patted her chest to express her determination. Saratoga said angrily, "Don't look like you're dying heroically. We're not asking you to kill people." A large glass of frothy beer was brought over by Princeton. She originally wanted to sit down and listen to what everyone had to say, but Saratoga waved her hand and she had no choice but to leave. Pushing a glass of beer to York City, Saratoga said, "Don't worry, it's a very simple matter." Believing that there is a ghost in you, with this thought in mind, York City asked, "What happened?" "You should know about CV-16. This time it was Ziwihi's turn." "I know, Mrs. Chiao, my second aunt." Saratoga said expressionlessly, "Don't call her MRS, can she also be a MRS?" York City responded aggrievedly, and then remembered what he saw when he saw that scene. He thought that CV-16 was already a wife, and she would definitely be a wife. Not daring to say too much, she asked, "Are you going to deal with CV-16? Ruhi lowered her head, her bangs covering her face, and the upper half of her face looked gloomy. "Yes. We want you to find her and teach her a lesson." Saratoga hummed, "She has been occupying her brother-in-law, mistress, and sneaky cat." York City muttered, "You, you only know how to teach the mistress. You can't slap a slap in the face, and I don't see you trying to teach the Admiral a lesson about two people's affair. He looks for CV-16 so often, and he brushes he has a good impression and shows off his knowledge. A fly cannot bite a seamless egg, but this Admiral is a fly." Snapped. Ruhi didn't speak, but Saratoga slapped the table angrily. Of course she knew about this kind of thing, but how could her brother-in-law teach her a lesson? She said, "York City, you talk too much." Yes, my fault." Saratoga wrinkled her nose, "Are you still not convinced?" York City lowered her head, of course she was not convinced. Not wanting to make matters worse, Ruhi said, "Okay, let's be honest. I just want you to go find the CV-16 for exercises." "Yes, it's that simple. Just teach her a lesson through drills." Saratoga agreed. York City was not happy. "You can also practice with her." "We can't, for many reasons." "Only you can. You are strong enough and can easily defeat CV-16. In fact, Saratoga and Ziwihi were sighing in their hearts. They couldn't do anything excessive, and they didn't want to go into battle themselves. They had no choice but to look for York City. If CV-16 loses to York City, it would be insulting to have to call York City senior or sister. It feels so boring. Only children do this kind of thing. York City still has a little pride. It has been almost 2 years, and now its combat effectiveness has become very strong. As long as we give it a few more years, well, probably a little more, we should be able to surpass Zeppelin. He. Is it enough just to win CV-16? It's not just about winning, it's best to win in a show-off way. In fact, it's okay not to practice. In short, you have to show your best carrier-based aircraft skills in front of CV-16 to suppress her confidence." York City said, "But when it comes to carrier-based aircraft control skills, I can't compare to Lexington's sister." CV-16 saw Lexington's sister's carrier-based aircraft control skills, and I showed off when I went there, which made people laugh. Big teeth are pretty much the same. I learned specifically that the carrier-based aircraft control skills my sister performed in front of the CV-16 were simple and unpretentious. The main purpose was to let the CV-16 take one step at a time, rather than aiming high and learning gorgeous skills. It seemed reasonable. York City nodded, "It sounds pretty easy." York City still agreed and asked CV-16 to practice. Mainly, it wouldn't work if they didn't agree. They could only play with two boring people. Arriving at the dock, York City found CV-16, with Lexington next to it. It had already been discussed that she would pretend to attend the class together and then wait for the opportunity. In fact, she came to attend the class at first, but she already knew the basic knowledge and left after listening to it for a while. Come and listen again at this time. The knowledge is still very basic, but it is much more detailed. According to the plan, Saratoga sent Lexington away and did not go far. It was York City's turn to take action. Thinking back to the first time I saw the rough control level of the CV-16 carrier-based aircraft, York City felt quite proud, to be honest. I have always failed, but I am now able to educate others on my own, which is very gratifying. York City said, "MRS Chiao, has Sister Lexington been teaching you knowledge?" CV-16 didn't care about his nickname. On the one hand, he already knew that there was no need to explain the joke. In fact, there is a reason. After receiving Lexington's education, she has accepted that even if it is a weapon, she will eventually become a wife one day. In a short time, CV-16 also knew that York City was a show-off, and she nodded, yes. Have you been practicing carrier-based aircraft? CV-16 replied, very few. Would you like me to teach you how to control carrier-based aircraft? I still have some experience. York City made up his mind and showed off the most dazzling carrier-based aircraft control technology. York City unfolded its ship's equipment and held the flight deck in hand, and the small aircraft like carrier-based aircraft Gale appeared on it. It took a lot of effort and almost took off my clothes to get it from the Admiral. After all, she had studied in the academy, and she knew very well what the carrier-based aircraft that came with the CV-16 were like: SB-2C Helldiver, TBF Avenger, F-6F Hellcat. Think about it, comparing the parameters of the carrier-based aircraft, the F-6F Hellcat looked like no worse than a Gale. Comforting myself in my heart, for an aircraft carrier, 1 point of anti-aircraft value is very important. Jiao Tai, please unfold your ship uniform too. At the same time, CV-16 also deployed its carrier-based aircraft. The carrier-based aircraft appeared on it. York City frowned and looked over. It was such a familiar carrier-based aircraft. She murmured, La-7, Core High-Dub aircraft, P-39, Pokriskin machine. Right. Who gave it to you? Senior Lexington. Actually, as a newbie, it would be better for you to practice on a whiteboard. CV-16 put away the Hero aircraft, and another carrier-based aircraft appeared. I also have a whiteboard carrier-based aircraft. It can only carry 4 types of carrier-based aircraft at the same time, and more of them are useless, but there is still no problem in carrying it. York City was stunned. Zero Type 21, where did this come from? The one the Admiral gave me seems to have belonged to Long Xiang. Taking a deep breath, York City wondered why the Admiral never gave these carrier-based aircraft to her. She said, compared with air control, how to effectively destroy the enemy is more important. It is unparalleled in mowing grass. And a -2 suddenly appeared on the flight deck of the CV-16 here, equipped with a high-foot cabinet, and then it was put away again, turning into an ordinary whiteboard carrier-based aircraft Type 97 attack. Can a torpedo machine be used? What were those just now? The Admiral gave it to me. It doesn't matter what you're trying to teach people. York City turned around and left. CV-16 shouted from behind, what's wrong? It's okay, it's none of your business. York City found Sugu in the office, and she rushed up and took Sugu's hand. It's too partial, why didn't I? York City burst into tears. For the first time, I have a senior I like, an admiral I like, and a garrison for life. The two joys overlap each other, and this double joy brings, more and more joy has come, and we should have had a dream-like happy time. However, why did it become like this? It's me first, it's obviously me who came first. It doesn't matter if you become the Admiral's ship girl or join the garrison. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 651. Even if CV-16 is built, the girl has a cool and handsome temperament, and she likes it very much, but she won't hang around her all day long. Not far away, I saw Veneto wearing a stroppy bikini. I originally thought that she might not have the courage anymore after seeing Aviel wear it. It seems that her ability to withstand injuries is still very strong. Next to her, there were many little girls carrying small buckets and shovels, such as Carmichael and Antonio. But she is the eldest sister after all, and she pays great attention to her status. She does not play with water or build castles or sand figures like those little Lolita, she just sits quietly and watches. Andrea brought her younger sister Kaio, who was Veneto's equal opponent. Next to Kaio, who was wearing a sexy swimsuit and holding a skateboard, she actually looked a little pitiful. As expected, there is no harm if there is no comparison. Just to wait for her to get into the water, her twin ponytails were tied into two buns, which was also very cute. The little girl Suk Bader wore diving goggles, hugged a red and white swimming ring, and held a water gun in her hand. Her smile became playful and unexpectedly cute. In fact, there was no surprise. Mr. Su is always cute, but I hope the supply ship won't take off people's underwear. The weather is getting hotter and hotter in summer. For Sugu, as a complete secular person, it is very important to appreciate swimsuits. In fact, it can't be said that he came here specifically to admire swimsuits. In the beginning, he just wanted to swim. I also found it interesting to dive while holding U-47's waist. It would be better if I didn't need to ventilate frequently. She is also good at sports and prefers sailing with California to the tomboy Tennessee. The blonde lady has a sexy waist. Finally, he got tired. The sun was shining brightly. Sugu sat under a big parasol on the beach, and Blucher sat next to him. The girl's pink mid-length hair was tied up and she also wore a black bikini. Originally having the best figure among the sisters, far surpassing Hipper and Prince Eugen, Blucher had a very hot figure. Pulling at the string of her underwear that was dug into her flesh, Blucher complained, "It feels so exposed." Sugu looked at the Blucher for a few times, then withdrew his gaze and said, "You have to wear it yourself." "My sister insists that I wear it. It makes me feel so exposed when I wear it." Blucher sat on the ground with his hands on his knees. Sugu thought of Blucher's usual confident speech, and he said, "Lubuletin, where is your usual mysterious confidence? You just need to show it a little bit. Punch the east to press the dock, kick the west Bismarck, cut off the grass is unparalleled, the heavy patrol is invincible." "Blucher, when you go into the water to swim, no one can see you." Blucher replied, "But I didn't come here to swim." "Then what are you doing here?" Blucher suddenly took out a can of beer from his side and showed off, "Chiang Chiang, Admiral, what do you think I brought you?" "Beer." Sugu waved his hand. He didn't like drinking. "No need." Blucher showed disappointment, "Oh, I worked very hard to bring it here." Sugu still took the beer. "Okay, give it to me." Looking around, Blucher asked curiously, "Helena didn't come today? She's in trouble." Helena usually likes to appear on the beach, and she has few enemies. After all, her only archenemy, the Prince of Wales, doesn't like swimming or sunbathing very much. Her appearance often causes a bloody storm on the beach. If she walks around in a sexy swimsuit, her breasts will sway, and she will start killing people, which is fatal. Blucher nodded, "It's good that she didn't come." Sugu looked at the pink-haired girl and thought that there is no need for you to be afraid of Helena. Not to mention that the fight was back and forth, but at least he had the qualifications to compete on the same stage. It's not like Hood hasn't been to the beach in these years. The main reason is not to mention battleships, but also many little Lolita. You can't be so one-sided. Who knows whether you are shy, modest, scared, or, to show off deliberately while retreating. Putting his chin on his knees, Blucher said, "I think of Aoba's Death Bank water." The words on the chest are particularly funny. Thinking of Aoba's game drawings, Sugu also laughed. An older sister can't compare to his younger sister Kinyagaza Milk. "Admiral, who do you think is cuter, Aoba or Ogen?" Sugu answered the question unreasonably, "I still like Quincy in Heavy Tour Idol, Ovo, idiot." "Who do you think has flatter chest, Aoba or Veneto?" Sugu said firmly, "Don't you know who is more equal? It must be Veneto, the uncrowned king. The small house is also very flat. Please, Xiaozai is just a little girl. Veneto is a little girl too." The strong malice seemed to be noticed. Sugu noticed that Veneto looked over, and he said, "I'm serious, Lubuletin." Veneto looked over. "If you keep talking, I will take your life." After laughing a bit, Blucher suddenly asked, "I didn't see Mrs. Dumpling. She doesn't like swimming. The Admiral loves her very much. As parents, of course you dote on your youngest. I treat her as my daughter." Blucher was shocked. "Really? Of course it's a lie. No matter how much she could be treated as a daughter, Xiao Zai could only be treated as a younger sister. Hey, Admiral, is it better to be sisters or mother and daughter? Don't ask such evil questions." Picking up the small bottle that he brought with the beer, Blucher finally plucked up the courage and said, "Well, Admiral, help me put on sunscreen." On the grass under the shade of the trees in the garrison, York City hugged his sister Bumblebee's waist, and she grimaced. She should have been beaten to death directly, but luckily Washington's axe did not fall on her, and she escaped. However, she really felt that she was about to die. Bumblebee stroked her sister York City's short hair, and she asked, "Sister, what's wrong with you?" Although she likes him very much, she really doesn't feel like a big sister to York City. "The other party is very kind to me, but there is no majesty at all, and he is not powerful enough, just a little bit worse. The image of a sister in my mind is still that of Enterprise. It's just that the Admiral can't get it at all, so there's nothing he can do." York City was unhappy. "We agreed that everyone is equal. Why? The Essex-class ship's equipment parameters are so much stronger than ours." "Some truths, understood early on," Bumblebee replied. "All men are equal, but some are more equal than others." York City's heart-rending wails rang out, 16 dumplings, her talent is so great too. I don't know why, but I can find the reason from Saratoga and Ziwihi. Anyway, CV-16 has too many nicknames. Wherever there is Bumblebee, there is her good friend Northampton." The girl said, "Historically, the Essex class is the spine, pillar, backbone, determination, and perseverance in everyone's mind. CV-16 is also she has an outstanding record, the ship girl is everyone's ideal woman, and CV-16 must have extraordinary talents. Unlike games, how much experience is fixed, here it's about talent, understanding, etc. But she grew up too fast. Yorktown is seeing rapid progress in the CV-16's leadership at Lex these days. It used to be that the carrier-based aircraft was still shaking, but now it has become smooth and stable. Thinking about it, it took a lot of time to get to this point. The ship's equipment parameters were originally better than mine, and they were almost suppressed in all directions. It only takes half a year, 1/4, maybe even one more soon, and you can surpass yourself. Northampton showed a little pity. Lexington and the Admiral are the best teachers to guide me. Moreover, CV-16's character can stand up no matter what failure he faces. The more he fights, the braver he becomes." York City was very unhappy. She did have the confidence, "I work very hard, and I won't be discouraged at all even if I fail." Bumblebee complained, "People are always defeated and defeated, but you are defeated repeatedly." York City glared at his sister, stretched out his hand and pinched Bumblebee's butt. "Not happy, Ajurbi, who is your sister? How can you help outsiders speak with your elbows turned out?" Bumblebee didn't know that York City just wanted to comfort her. She slapped her sister's hand away and said mercilessly, "That's the truth." York City was lying on the grass, her limbs spread out to form the word big. She suddenly said, "Bumblebee, can you give it to the Admiral to exchange for a sea fang? To be honest, Gale is still not good enough. If I want to have a more powerful carrier-based aircraft, the only one who can do it is my sister." Bumblebee protected her butt. She patted York City's thigh and said, "Sister, you are going to die. Anyway, you like the Admiral. It's just right. Wrap it up as a gift and send it over." I don't like him, he took my B-25. Mine, that's mine as long as the B-25 is involved, the Hornet is quite persistent. York City said, didn't he return the B-25 to you? Now I hear you saying good things about him every day. I'll take your B-25 away first, and then give it back to you, and you'll give it back to Dade, stupid sister. As long as you give me the B-25 back, anything goes. The white clouds in the sky looked soft, like cotton candy, and I really wanted to bite them off. York City said boredly, why don't we join the company? We are her sisters, and they will definitely give us powerful carrier-based aircraft. The company's carrier-based aircraft is still the BTD-1 destroyer. She drooled when she saw the hero aircraft. God created man, cold made man equal. It should be said that everyone is equal before 40 or 60. I want to say that if you get cold for me, the Admiral will treat us as equals. It seems true. York City complained, it's so biased. So many powerful carrier-based aircraft were given to her. 16 dumplings. I had nothing at the beginning. It's just for Jiao Tai to use. How could the attackers be willing to give away the A-2? The same goes for everyone. In the end, they have to return it to everyone. Speaking of which, I was asked the day before yesterday that I took away the B-25, but I just borrow it for a day. Even if I give it a try, I didn't have anything at the beginning. Then I don't know, but you must have played a lot of hero games and spent so many resources. No way. York City thought to himself, remembering that he had just woken up, he didn't know anything about the hero machine, and he didn't care about anything. Going to class every day, only the F2 of Buffalo can be happy. It seems that there were no heroes back then, there were only a few of them, the Admiral, myself, Xiaozai, Sister Lexington, and Jiajia. No matter so much, York City continued, Sister Lexington, and the Admiral, they never taught me anything. York City slept on the grass, and Bumblebee lay on her belly, saying, you used to attend classes at the academy, so what else do they teach you? The Admiral doesn't help me with my homework. I get a headache just looking at the homework. Bumblebee said, Sister, you can't be saved, actually, you don't know that everyone is envious of you. You can go to school with the Admiral. It seems that he even fought with people because of you before. There's no fight. It's already very good. You don't know what the Admiral was like before. Bumblebee shed tears thinking about the past. She raised her head and hit York City in the stomach, insatiable. But I'm still unhappy. I'm just a little bit happy. Greed is enough to make a snake swallow an elephant. York City hummed twice, and she suddenly said, I want to eat ice cream. I want to eat pudding, and I want to eat pudding made by Yuxian. I wonder how the store in Kaohsiung is doing. It seems like it's still being renovated. Is tonkotsu ramen better or seafood ramen? I like to eat fried noodles. It's so boring. Let's go play chess. How about playing ball? Beach volleyball. It seems that the Admiral is at the beach. That's not going to happen. York City bit a piece of grass aimlessly, chewed it twice and spit it out. I want to attack, but I haven't made any progress today. If we are doing exercises, we can't shoot down the opponent's carrier-based aircraft. I always feel like something is missing. There will be no carrier-based aircraft crashing during the exercise, otherwise no matter how many resources the garrison has, it will not be enough. Who wins and who loses will be judged by a set of criteria. Without real combat, the effects of drills, training, and learning are definitely not as effective as an attack. York City continued, it would be great if Yamato Deep Sea comes again. This time, let's bring Akaga Deep Sea and Kaga over, and let's have another hardy battle. Bumblebee said, Fukumae Yamato shouldn't come again, otherwise I will strip her naked next time. Already stripped. But we only broke off one horn. Yamato Fukumai has several horns. You're too much. York City sat up and shook his head. If you don't have a deep-sea flagship, any deep-sea ship girl will be fine. Bumblebee asked, didn't I have a mission the day before yesterday? Didn't you go out? No. Then who's out? It must be 16 dumplings. York City gritted his teeth. It's her again. How can the Admiral be so partial? It's me who should have attacked. Northampton interjected, I heard Zeppelin say that the theoretical knowledge of CV-16 is already very rich, and then it is necessary to integrate the skills Lexington passed on to her in actual combat. Exhaling through his nostrils, York City said, when she came, I gave her everything. It was originally my opportunity to attack. What? It belongs to everyone, so why does it belong to you again? York City was non-committal. She stood up and Bumblebee asked, what are you going to do? Still unhappy, question him. After all, York City dared to question him. She had already made up her mind to sit quietly and practice nonviolence and non-cooperation. Where are you going? He's on the beach. Then I'm going to the beach. Bumblebee also stood up, patted his clothes, and straightened his ponytail. I'll go too, I want to see Veneto's swimsuit.